Okay, so sveiki visi prisijungę prie virtualios konferencijos Befriending Blended Teaching How to Design Lessons Smartly. Esu Šviesos atstovas Ignas ir šiandien moderuosiu renginį. Faktas, kad esu atsakingas už anglų kalbos leidinius ir kaip jau turbūt supratote, visas turinys bus pristatomas būtent anglų kalba, kaip ir diskusija renginio pabaigoje. Mes tokį variantą pasirinkome pirmiausia todėl, kad renginys yra įrašomas, o vėliau tą įrašo nuorodą pasidalinsime ir su savo draugais iš užsienio. And now let's switch to English. Before anything else, I would like to thank all of the teachers, our attendees, and our dear trainers, Carolina, Fiona, and Christina, for taking time out and being with us today. This conference came to be with one simple goal in mind: to help our teachers and show them support amid the current situation in our world. It is a challenging time for teachers. Well, at times it might feel as if you've been thrown out into the open sea, to your own devices, right? To fend for yourselves and your students. The regulations given by school administrations may seem too abstract with no real insight of how to design high-quality online lessons, and our continued collaboration with Macmillan recognizes the issue and wants to offer some sort of life jacket to make the process easier and less stressful. Teaching is drastically changing, posing new challenges and making the tools teachers have worked with for so long to be not nearly enough for efficient teaching these days. This is where the blended teaching becomes needed. It has immense potential to be applied in teaching for years to come, regardless of what the pandemic situation will be in the future. It's safe to say that blended teaching is here to stay, right? And we hope that this conference will be of use to you, and we'll be running a live Q&A session at the end of it. Dar truputį instrukcijų norėčiau pasakyti ir lietuviškai, tai yra, kad visus klausimus užduokite prie YouTube transliacijos esančiame gyvame pokalbyje. Žinoma, klausimus užduokite anglų kalba prirašydami lektorės vardą. Tų lektorių bus 3. Iškart po pranešimo lektorės, gali neturėti laiko atsakyti į rūpimus klausimus, todėl mes atrinksime pačius svarbiausius ir juos lektorės atsakys būtent tos diskusijos metu. Okay, and this conference wouldn't have been possible without one special person, Jakub Bach. He's a Macmillan Chief Sales Manager in the Baltics, and he's here with us today and wants to reach out to you as well. So, Jakub, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. As Ignas already mentioned, my name is Jakub Bach, or Bonk, and I'm a sales manager at Macmillan Education, responsible for Central and Eastern Europe. This basically means that I manage over 17 countries, from Estonia to Albania to Armenia. And today I'm speaking to you from my office in Gdańsk, in Poland. And first of all, I'm really glad that Šviesa and Ignas were able to organize this event, and that we had so many registrations. I don't know what the turnout is, but the registration numbers were impressive. I remember my first conferences in Lithuania back in 2016, when me and Martin Jelinek traveled from Vilnius to Kaunas to Klaipėda to Panevėžys, and I don't know, perhaps we even met, right? Because you were present at those meetings. So perhaps we even met back in 2016. Now, I really wish we could do that again and we could travel again. I was used to traveling a lot, and now I'm stuck in the office. I hope we'll be able to see each other again soon. But for now, a huge thanks to Šviesa and Ignas for organizing this. Thank you to the trainers as well for agreeing to attend and prepare all the presentations. And thank you to you for finding the time between online teaching, homeschooling, and being able to attend today. So we at Macmillan have prepared a plethora of materials for teachers to use in this new reality. And I will be sharing a document with Ignas and Šviesa that will provide you with all the links to all those materials that are free to use. And they are all present on our Macmillan International website. So this will be distributed after the event. So for now, just please enjoy yourselves. And that's it from me. Thank you for attending again. Stay healthy, guys.
Thank you, Jakob, for a beautiful speech, right? And now I can't wait to present to you Karolina Katorovitz-Yashinska. She's going to speak about new school reality and what not to flip to design lessons smartly. So please, Karolina, and all of your attendees, enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Let me just... Okay, and here it is. Perfect. Hello. As Ignas has said, my name is Karolina, and I'm going to talk to you about, well, designing and planning lessons in these difficult times of online teaching, of online education. My aim for the next 50, I'm looking at my watch, 50 or 55 minutes, is to equip you with the materials so that you're able to plan the lessons in such a way that it requires less rather than more effort. I believe that one of the biggest problems, or one of the biggest complaints from all the teachers that I work with, and I work, maybe this is something that I should mention at this point. I work as a director of studies. I work with the teachers to maximize their potential. I observe their classes. I kind of advise them how to, tweak their teaching techniques to help their students develop linguistically even better. So basically, if not all of the things you're going to hear about right now, or most of the things maybe, if not all of them, are based on these observations, and are mainly based on my experience as a director of studies. So what I observed at the very beginning of this lockdown and the very beginning of online education is that apart from the fact that we actually stayed at home, the workload actually doubled, right? Staying at home, not having to go to work and then come home, did not actually mean that we had more time at our hands. It meant just the opposite. It was a never-ending it seemed to be a never-ending work, okay? I am going to tell you a few things about why that happened, a few most common mistakes that my teachers and the group, the teachers that I work with, I call them my teachers. So I'd like to explain that at the very beginning in case it sounds weird. So I'm going to share them with you the most common mistakes that my teachers make or made at the very beginning, or during the first lockdown and the first wave of online teaching and online education. And like I said at the beginning, my aim for the next hour is to provide you with sufficient measures to make knowledgeable choices and reasonable decisions as to how to design your lessons, how to plan your online teaching so that it does not amount to extra effort, okay? Or it doesn't, so that it doesn't add up to the effort that you have to put into online education. One thing that I'd like to, so what I'm really going to talk about is not so much of distance learning, but distance teaching. And I am perfectly aware of the fact that, at the end of the day, it is the student who is the most important part, or should, in the process of linguistic development. But today, I'm not going to really focus on the student. I'm not going to focus on the process of developing different skills of language subsystems. I am going to focus directly on the teacher and what he or she could or do to make his or her work at least a little bit easier. So the agenda is the following. I will start with some introduction in which, yes, I am going to tell you about some of the basic mistakes or most common mistakes that my teachers used to make at the very beginning of online education. Based on those mistakes, so bearing them in mind, I will try to come up with some basic principles of distance teaching. So something that, you know, whichever course book you teach with, whichever age group you really teach with, there is a certain list of principles that I believe if you follow them, your work will be slightly easier, I think, right? Then I'm going to talk about 2 scenarios for distance learning, and I am going to discuss something that I called a guide. I called it here a guide to success, or a guide to online teaching based on Gateway. And this guide is actually quite an extensive handout that you're going to receive after, I'm not sure if it's after my presentation or really after the conference today. And during this presentation, I will also explain how this guide works, what you can see there, how to adjust it to your own needs. So let us start with a short introduction. Basically, when people think, I mean, outside the schoolwork, or maybe in the past when, you know, perhaps even some of you did online courses, okay? But or at least some of us have heard about people who do online courses. And basically this was the idea, you know, a teacher explaining something, everything working nicely and smoothly. But in fact, once it all started, when it all started, it gave rise to a lot of frustration. Not only for the learners, for the teachers, but also for the learners. One of the reasons for this was the fact that, and that was one common thing that all of my teachers unfortunately did, was that they simply gave students too much work to do. So first, they kind of spent too much time preparing all sorts of extra things, looking for worksheets online, and then gave lots of extra worksheets and extra activities to their students, which basically ended up on, which basically meant frustration on both sides of this coin, okay, of the teaching learning process. So the beginnings, I would say, were pretty tough. I also have to say that the way my teachers and the way we work nowadays is completely different. But still, I'd like to say what those initial mistakes were. First of all, and look, mind you that they all kind of, they constitute, all of these constitute one big problem, and could be divided into, this one big problem can be divided into smaller ones. The one big problem is that for some reason, teachers, when they move to online teaching or online educations, if not most of the teachers, at least some of them, and definitely the ones that I work with, forgot about the course book, or for some reason minimized the role of the course book in online education. So this basically resulted in too many extra worksheets, because instead of relying on the course book and, you know, you're still teaching the same course, they were still teaching the same course, but for some reason they were looking for extra materials, extra worksheets, also too much reliance on online materials, pictures, online applications, videos, more applications, online games. This was, if not completely redundant, then it definitely added up to the workload of the teacher and later on the workload of the learner. And finally, let me just, and finally, they didn't rely enough on the course book material, okay? Let me now digress for a moment for where I believe the reason for all these problems was. At some point I found, it was like an online blog of a teacher or a director of studies, and one of the headlines on that blog was the following: How am I supposed to impress my students in online education? I was like, hold on a second. Why do you think, or why should anybody think, that my job as a teacher is to impress my students? The article in the blog was all about, you know, how am I supposed to impress my students in online teaching if they actually know more about, they are more technologically advanced, they are more computer literate, they know more applications, they are generally better at, you know, using the internet and finding things online. But the question is your job as a teacher really to impress the students, or is your job to actually teach them? Okay, it doesn't mean that we need to bore them to death by doing one exercise after another, and I'm going to talk about how to avoid that. But it doesn't mean that you have to wow your students. It doesn't mean that every online lesson has to have this wow effect, okay? So basically, you don't need all sorts of extra application, online resources, extra worksheets, additional videos and whatnot. What we really need to do is to approach what we already have, but in such a way that it does not bore our students to death. I mean, there's one thing we need to understand, that being in the classroom learning or going to school provides variety. There is always some kind of group dynamics. There's a break. Things are going on. When the student sits in front of the computer for several hours in a row, there is very little variety. So, but I am going to tell you how to provide students with that variety, not necessarily by, telling them to do Kahoot or play Quizlet or whatnot, okay? So with some very basic, easily accessible materials, okay? So here we are. So basically, my ideas for today will be that in online education, we still stick to the course book. What has to be done, however, is that we need to be selective, okay? For example, I've just told you that doing one exercise after another in the student's book, then in the workbook, is going to be downright boring, okay? Very repetitive. So let's be selective. Let's decide which of these activities should be done and which of them perhaps should be omitted, okay? Now, how to decide in a conscious and knowledgeable way what to do and what to omit is one of those tools that I'd like to equip you with today, so that at the end of this session, you can make such choices on your own. And now, if you must add, then add something simple. It doesn't have to be like a game in Kahoot or an extra set of words in Quizlet or maybe another online application. It can be something very simple. If you teach with Gateway, and I am going to give you examples of all the things that the methodological thing that I talk about today. So I'm going to exemplify them with Gateway. So now if you teach with that course book, I would say that the teacher's book is a perfect source for such simple activities to be added to online education. Let's have a look at the just one of many examples. Ask students to write the names of 3 famous people who annoy them and say why using vocabulary from the first, or say why using vocabulary from the first lesson and adverbs of frequency. Okay, so clearly there's an extra activity. Students no longer look down and do one activity after another in the book, but they are allowed to interact, to do something, facing the teachers and their peers, okay? Another one, hold a team competition, which is possible because you can divide the students that you see in either Zoom or Teams or Google Classroom into 2 groups. Divide the class into 2 teams and read out definitions of the words from the text. As soon as someone knows the word which you're explaining, they call out the word or raise their hand. And that team gets a point, obviously, if they are able to say what this is, okay? So easily, just with a minor modification, this is a very nice online activity which kind of holds interaction, which puts people together. And at some point today, I will make a claim that if you're thinking, what is more important to be done during the online lesson, like a set of activities in the course book or in the workbook, or some kind of interaction or group work or pair work, we should definitely go for the second one. Let me give you some other example. This example in the green square actually comes from the guide that you're going to receive. It is also the same rule. So add something simple. You don't need to spend hours looking for extra materials online or preparing extra worksheets. Look at this one. revise phrases and vocabulary from the previous lesson. In order to do so, you might ask students to write 4 or 5 items they can remember in the chat box. Very simple. Show students a photo, which you prepared before the lesson, and ask students to write a mini dialogue based on this photo using the target vocabulary, or show students 3 to 4 sentences in L1 and ask for translation, which is also a very nice revision activity without the extra effort of preparing something, of preparing extra worksheets or looking for online materials, okay? So this was a short introduction, which I hope already gives you an idea of where we are going with this, or where this should go. So now, based on those mistakes, based on those very general guidelines, let us come up with some basic principles of online learning or distance teaching. Let me just look at the watch. Okay. Number 1, and this actually follows up on being selective. One thing we should remember is that not every task needs to be done. And I think that at the beginning of the first lockdown, the first wave of online, the first part of online teaching, this was the biggest problem for my teachers. If there was one page of activities in the workbook, in the student's book, and another page of activities in the workbook, for some reason, they believed that all of those had to be done, okay? Either during online lesson, which very often turned into online supervision, students were doing the task, and the teacher was just, supervising online. Whatever they didn't do during the lesson, that was their homework, okay? But not every task needs to be done. We have to prioritize. How do we prioritize? By setting lesson goals. If you know what your goal is, then you will be able to pick and choose the right activities for your learners. How do you pick the right activities for your learners? Well, I cannot answer that question for you, because the biggest asset of any teacher is the fact that they know the students. So let me have a look at this. Let me show you this. This is an introductory lesson in a unit. It introduces vocabulary into lexical sets. The first one is art, theater, and music, and then artists. And now, it would be difficult for me to choose something for your students, right? But for my students, I can make these choices. First of all, I can decide whether I want to focus on presentation or practice, because let's face it, there are 7 activities on this page. We are not going to do all of them, okay? So perhaps I will focus on the activities that present the new vocabulary, which is exercise number 1 and 2 here, and exercise number 4 here, and that's all, okay? And I can decide that because perhaps I'm more interested in giving students time to do these activities in art from the lexical field of art, theater, and music, because the name of artist is actually something that we already discussed a while ago, while we discussed, I don't know, the jobs, okay? Or people who do different activities, so, right? Or maybe I'm going to decide on different vocabulary sets. Maybe I'll say, okay, art, theater, music is actually something pretty easy, and that's not that important from the point of view of the exam or the test that they are going to write at the end of the semester or the school year. What is really important for me is this exercise. Why? Because this is actually word building, and word building is something that my students have problems with, okay? But this is something for me to decide based on what my students' needs are, what the curriculum requirements are, what the test requirements are, and so on. So setting goals is vital before every session, before every lesson. Another very important thing, homework is not obligatory. Mind you that in online teaching, everything is homework, okay? So a follow-up, a reasonable follow-up after the online lesson might be a good idea, but not giving students homework should always be at the back of the teacher's mind. There is always a possibility not to give students homework, just because this is what being learner-friendly means. Because all of our students, and you just have to trust me on that one, they are super tired, they are exhausted, they are struggling on a daily basis. So if we forgo homework once in a while or every other lesson, it's fine. Another thing that I would say works well for, or is like one of the basic principles for distance learning, is that it's very easy to boost students' creativity and to help students develop linguistically by using students' surroundings. Look, this is a complete novelty. I mean, one thing is for sure, students develop linguistically, or they learn the language, both vocabulary and grammar, by putting things that they learn into context. And now this online teaching and online learning creates a completely new situation for us, right? That basically means that we can use the students' personal surroundings and, you know, personal lives, the way they are, the way they function in their private lives, as a tool for developing lexis and grammar. So, for example, the instructions for students might be the following, and it is also taken from the guide you're going to receive after the session. Take a photo of something in your surroundings, your room, your house, parents, personal items, etc. Write 4 to 5 sentences about this photo with the grammar structure from the lesson. And again, it does not require much effort from the teacher. You don't need to make an extra worksheet, okay? This is a very, this is something that you would not normally be able to do in the classroom. Speaking of being learner-friendly, I remember the beginnings of online education that was in Poland, and suddenly all the teachers were like, how am I going to give them tests? How am I going to do the quizzes? What if I give my students the test, they turn off their cameras and they start cheating, or they start writing, you know, from one another, or they start, I don't know, texting each other for the right answers. And I'm like, so what will happen if they write tests together? The aim of the test is not really to prove students how little they know, but just to give them yet another opportunity to revise, isn't it? So if my students pair up or group in order to write my test, it's fine for me. I'm the kind of a teacher who likes giving very good marks. So maybe it's just me, but this is one of the, okay, how about this? How about just giving students a test to write at home without any supervision, without any online supervision? I used to do it still when I was, you know, when I was teaching in a regular school, you know, going to the classroom. Instead of doing tests in the school, I used to give my students tests to do at home. There was just one rule: they cannot ask other people. They can use the book, they can use the course book, right? So what? They would still get, not everybody would get a 5, right? They were 4s and 5s, so which is the second and the third best mark in Polish, on the Polish scale. But I don't mind that, right? And in the times of, in such difficult times of lockdown, of pandemic or online education, I think that it's even more important for assessment to be friendly. I'll show you some examples of how to make this assessment learner friendly. And finally, something that I believe online education gives room for is that we can finally acknowledge what students want. In other words, in the classroom, when you manage 20 or 30 people at the same time, it's difficult to tell students, okay, now do 3 activities of your own choice from this page, because later on, you know, classroom management would fail completely. But in online education, that will actually work. And let me show you how it works. Again, the example is from, that's a revision page from Gateway. Students are supposed to revise reported speech, statements and questions, and vocabulary. The instruction for students goes, do 3 tasks of your choice on exercise 107. You don't need to do all of them. Perhaps some of the students will do the easiest ones, because this is their nature as students. They want to do what's the easiest. But perhaps another person who is more ambitious and knows where where he or she struggles, he will choose to do what he used to have, or what he had problems with on this page. We can also add instructions for students could be do 3 tasks of your choice on page 107. Make sure you mix grammar and vocabulary activities, for instance, to make sure that students do kind of revise a little bit of grammar and a little bit of vocabulary. But that's okay. We are working and we are teaching in completely new times. Giving students a choice is fine for me. And the last exercise the last principle for distance teaching is something that I've heard at my son's school when we were preparing as parents for online education. One of the teachers in that school said, remember, doing a task is not learning. If you ask students to do 7 activities on the page from the student's book, and another 6 activities from the workbook, it still doesn't mean that they have learned anything, okay? It's better to narrow down the number of activities to 3, but make sure that students actually think, do something extra than just ticking. Use those new words and structures in context. And I'm going to show you in a moment how that actually works. And I am going to show you how these principles work in 2 different scenarios for distance teaching. Distance learning, distance teaching, like I said, everything, everywhere here in my presentation, you will only find distance teaching because, like I said, I'm talking about teachers today, and the teachers, so to speak, well-being to a certain extent. Now, there are 2 options which you are probably familiar with. The first one is called asynchronous, which means that there are no video connections. What you do is just send the instructions for individual study. And right now that we have developed different methods and techniques, and now that we have got used to online teaching, I believe that asynchronous teaching is not so popular anymore. It was, however, at the beginning of online learning. So I'm pretty sure that if not all of you, then most of you actually teach in that synchronous way, with real-time lessons when students just log into Zoom, Classroom, Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, or whichever tool you have. And this is followed by some online, so these online sessions are followed by individual work. There is, however, one area where the asynchronous learning has got a lot of potential. I would say that there are still a number of, maybe rural areas, maybe underprivileged families in which there are 3 kids and only 1 computer. In cases like this, I would say for such students, asynchronous learning is basically the only way they can do any schoolwork. Okay, so that's why although I am aware of the fact that most of us are now working in this synchronous way, I still decided to include that asynchronous option because, well, life writes different scenarios for us. You never know what kind of students you're going to have in the nearest future. Let us start with the first one then, asynchronous learning. How to go about it? 3 most important things is, first of all, pick and choose. It's absolutely impossible to do everything. And that's for sure. So being selective, choosing the activities for our learners, setting the lesson goals, okay? We should focus on the core. If I decide that my aim for this particular lesson is to introduce present simple, then let me choose these activities or those activities from the book that are my core, that means the activities that actually introduce present simple, for instance. And basically, asynchronous learning is all about writing such instructions for the learner that will navigate them through the course book material. Let me show you how it works on the basis of a course book. Again, we've got Gateway, the first introductory lesson here. Now, how do we do that? First of all, prioritize, right? We need to decide what is it that we want our students to do. Even if it's not for online education, we cannot just, or we shouldn't write to our learners, do activities from page 107 in the student's book and page 55 in the workbook, that's all, okay? Because it's, like I said before, it's downright boring. There is no variety. Students feel, I would say that this gives students the feeling of being left alone completely, okay? So we still need to prioritize and focus on something. So again, you can either choose the presentation activities, and let's have a look here. For instance, parents work with a partner, students cannot work with a partner, but put these words in the correct column. Okay, so this is something that I would do. And I would also ask them to do exercise 4 and 5, right? And then at the end, just to provide some variety, I would add one of the activities which relies on more than just ticking and crossing and matching. So this is what I would choose. I would choose one listening, right? Go beyond doing a task. If you must add something extra. Maybe you can ask students a question about the photographs and include an element of choice. So maybe if you tell your students to do exercises 1, 4, and 5 from this page, then you can add and maybe choose one of the listening activities from this page. If students just want to listen, check, and repeat, they will listen to the recording to exercise 2. If they want more, they will listen to the recording to exercise 6. And now, how is this done in the Gateway Guide for Distance Learning? In the first option, asynchronous learning. Let me first maybe digress here or introduce this handout to you, something that you will receive. Basically, the guide is nothing else but a bunch of generic instructions that in this asynchronous option can be sent out to your students. Due to the fact that Gateway is organized in every unit in Gateway is organized in the same or according to the same language systems and skills, I was able to provide you with a template for each of these lessons. So there's a template for vocabulary lesson. There is another template for reading lesson and grammar and context and developing vocabulary and so on. And first, I'd like to show you how this template works for asynchronous learning. So in asynchronous learning, that is the one that you only send instructions to your learners, comes in the following way. Lesson aim, to introduce new vocabulary. This is obviously something that I've done for you. This usually in every lesson scenario, every lesson plan, you do write the lesson aim. However, what comes under it, the obligatory tasks this is something that you might already think about and change. I wrote here all tasks from the student's book, introducing new vocabulary, some of the vocabulary presentation. But maybe this is a moment when you could think about your students. In other words, the obligatory task is the minimum core, right? The minimum core that every student should do. And then your task is to you receive a template, and it says as follows: send the following instruction to your students. This is an instruction to you. Remember to complete the pages and the number of the task, which are all marked in red lines. So, and here what you send to the students comes here from this moment, what to prepare before the lesson. So prepare students' book, workbook, and notebook. And here comes the list of instructions. What do I do and where to find it? Number 1, look at the photos on page something. You can, because this is, like I said, for every single vocabulary lesson in the book. Can you name at least 5 items you can see in these pictures? Do tasks, this and this and that on page something. This is for you to be filled in before you send them to the teachers. Now, exercise 1 and then exercise 3, mind you, provide some kind of deviation from the, doing one task after another, because just doing the activities in the book is not learning. So I suggested the following: create a mind map for the new words, or write the new words in the notebook. Then I added something else, listen to the activity, do the listening activity number something on page. This also gives you the recording, and then do 3 tasks of your choice on page something in the workbook, right? So mind you, all of the principles for online teaching are actually there. There is element of choice. We do talk about, you know, what's the, we focus on the core. We do think about the lesson. Now, let me show you some other principles, how they work in this particular guide. Let students choose and make use of the students' surroundings. This is a grammar in context lesson. I'm not sure how many of you actually use Gateway, but look at this. Now there's present simple and present continuous, 2 activities. And then you go to grammar reference. So these are for grammar presentation, and then grammar practice. Now then number 3 is again grammar presentation with grammar reference on a different page, and then again grammar practice. So how to let students choose and make the use of the surroundings? Here you are. Again, the lesson name is grammar presentation and practice, obligatory task, the grammar presentation activity, grammar reference. This is again for you to revise. Perhaps you would like to include something else here, but this is, mind you, it's just for you. You don't really send it to the learner. What you send to the learner starts here, what to prepare before the lesson, and then what do I do? Do tasks 1A, 2A, 3A, and so on. So the grammar presentation activities. Then go to grammar reference on page something. Then do tasks, and which tasks should be done. If necessary, go to grammar reference again, because this is where you find more explanation. And again, do 3 tasks of your choice. Do 3 tasks of your choice in the workbook. Now, and again, what comes here is the idea for assessment. It's the one that I've already quoted today. Take a photo of something in your surroundings, your room, house, parents, personal items, etc. It should be etc. Sorry, misspelled word, sorry. Write 4 to 5 sentences about this photo with the grammar structure from the lesson. And send the sentences to me by, I don't know, Friday the 20th at the latest. This is the instruction for students, just, right? And this is idea for assessment. It doesn't have to be a test. It's enough for the learner to do something, I would say, so that he or she presents something that, you know, something that they did well. They can choose. Okay, this is something. Sorry, I lost track here. What I wanted to say is that with an activity like this, the assessment becomes learner friendly, because we give students other opportunities to show the results of the learning other than a test or a quiz. This is what I wanted to say. Sorry. Okay, more examples. The next the next activity, the next example is a page with developing speaking. Right now, some of our principles were: add something simple, make assessment learner friendly. So, at the same look, obligatory task, lesson names. Look here. First, students do a task this and this on page, but then read the phrases in the speaking bank, choose 3 and write sentences with them, right? This is adding something small and something simple. You don't need a whole worksheet or extra activities, extra online app. This is something, it's short, it's manageable, it's doable for every learner. And learner-friendly assessment, look at this one, write a dialogue similar to the one from the lesson, using at least 3 phrases from the speaking bank, and send it to me by Wednesday, the 22nd, or Wednesday will be the 25th at the latest. Okay, so again, it doesn't have to be a test or a quiz. Oh Jesus, I need to speed up now. I've just noticed how late it is. Okay then, so let us move on to the next part. So in synchronous learning, or the guide for synchronous learning, is simply a set of instructions that you send out to the learner. This is a generic template, which you only filled in with the number of pages. Obviously, naturally, this has been created for Gateway. You might, however, use it, and I hope it will be, I've done something similar with other course books as well with other titles. And I think that once you get to know the principle, once you kind of go through this process with me and understand how this works, I think you will be able to create something similar for another book or another course book that you're using with your students. Now let us have a look at the synchronous learning and the guide for synchronous distance learning or distance teaching. Like I said, these are real-time lessons followed by some individual study. Again, how to go about it? First of all, and this is something that I believe I've already mentioned, we need to avoid online supervision. An online lesson is not the moment when students do activities and you only watch if they're actually doing it, okay? Online lessons should be collaborative or as collaborative and as interactional as possible, because this is doing the activities in the student's book or in the workbook is something that students can do on their own. If you have them, if they suddenly, tune in or log in to one, chat room together, this is the moment to talk, to interact, okay, to do something different, something that they are unfortunately deprived of because of the online teaching. And in order for this to work, we again need to flip some of the tasks. Now, this is where the idea of flipped classroom comes to light. Now, one of the most convincing explanations that I've heard of how flipped classroom actually adds up to the effectiveness of any teaching, but also online teaching, is the one provided by Russell Stannard. And let me briefly explain it to you. These are his ideas, but I believe that they are very informative and they are pretty much very simple, but truly eye-opening. In order to understand the idea, in order to understand what flipped classroom actually is, we need to go back to the Bloom's taxonomy of different thinking skills. I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with the concept that some of the thinking skills are the so-called lower order, which are rather, manipulative, repetitive. They are based on kind of absorbing or getting to know certain facts, like remembering, understanding, applying. Then on top of that are higher order thinking skills. So the activities, all of the activities that actually make you think, that make you interact with others, create, analyze different sources, they definitely require a lot more processing from the learner, okay? And now mind you, what happens in the regular classroom, let's take history, for example, right? First, the teacher gives a lecture on, I don't know, the beginnings of the Second World War, giving all the dates and telling a story, right? So, and these are lower order thinking skills. It's all about understanding, remembering the dates and so on. And then students go home and they have to do something with it. Yes, like create a mind map of different reasons for the outbreak of the Second World War, or create a timeline, or analyze some reasons for different events, and so on. And in other words, at home, they are left with a higher order thinking skills. Now, the idea for flipped classroom is to change that. So actually understanding, so in other words, pure facts, and just reading about something is, what students can do at home. And now when you come to the classroom, let's analyze, evaluate, create something. And the same thing will be, the same principle will be applicable in online learning. Remembering, understanding, and maybe even applying, but definitely remembering, understanding is something that students can do before the lesson. So if you have a vocabulary presentation activity, students can do it before the lesson. So they can only look for the words in the dictionary. They can read the rules about how present perfect is made, okay? And then when they come to the classroom, or when they log on to the online session, you will analyze and evaluate and use these new vocabulary and structures in context, okay? Talk about various concepts, share your ideas. This is the idea of a flipped classroom. So again, let us have a look on the basis of particular examples at on how it's going to work in our online education based on Gateway again. So one more time, the first lesson, vocabulary, the first lesson in a unit, this is what I mean. The first lesson in a unit, vocabulary, 2 vocabulary sets. Now, the question now will be, what is it that I ask students to do before the lesson? And what is it that I leave for the online session? If we follow the flipped classroom ideas, so anything that is suitable for self-study can be lesson preparation, and anything that requires interaction and communication will be done during the online session. So maybe look at this one, exercises 1, 4, and 5. This is something that students can do before the lesson, and there's no need for you to sit down online and supervise them doing these particular activities. Now, when they come to the classroom or when log into your online lesson, they are already equipped with a little bit of language. And now you can ask them to listen, to talk about the photographs, listen to people talking about themselves, do some speaking activity, and so on and so forth. Right? Okay. So here, what will be, this is something that I'd like to share with you, this inventory of before the lesson activities. What else can you ask students to do before the lesson? Any warm-up activities from the course book. Vocabulary and grammar presentation, that's what it looks like in Gateway. If the grammar lesson begins with matching the rules with the examples and reading bits and pieces of grammar reference, so just the grammar explanations, they can do it on their own before the lesson. You can ask students to read or listen to a text or a recording for global understanding. So without focusing on the details, but just read it once to have any idea of what the text is about, or just listen to the recording and be able to tell me what it is about without really doing the activity from the course book. Just listen, okay? You can give students some jumbled sentences that, as a preparation for this particular lesson, they are supposed to put in the correct order or unjumble, okay? You can even give students the vocabulary list in their mother tongue, so that for them to look for English equivalents. Okay, something very simple, something that belongs to the lower order thinking skills. You can also focus on the special boxes, like read the comprehension tip and think about if you actually do it, if you ever do it. Read the exam tip, read the phrases bank before the lesson. Right, something simpler, but something that students can easily do through self-study. So let me show you now what this, obviously all of these principles, all of these types of activities are included in this particular, in the guide that you're going to receive as a handout after my session. It is kind of similar because, when you start, you still have the same lesson aim. You've got the obligatory tasks. However, it starts with online lesson scenario. So it actually gives you it suggests, it's a list of suggestions for the teacher, how you can do, what you can do during the lesson. Let's take a very brief look. Greet the students, ask them to show if they can hear you or see you. So if you hear me, put your thumbs up, or nod your head, or put your arms in the air, and so on, okay? Anything that, allows you to connect to the learners. Begin the lesson with a short warm-up activity, asking students, today I'd like to go somewhere, I want to have something. Draw your students' attention to the photos and ask questions, all right? Ask them to look at the photos, and in the picture, so that you actually have some kind of interaction, okay? Then number 4 is ask students if they have done the activity from the student's book you assigned for self-study, obviously. Then choose 2 or 3 activities from the student's book, and it follows like this. Before the lesson, extra activity, for example. Before the lesson, prepare a few photos connected with the subject of the lesson, right? You don't really need to prepare extra worksheets, look for online applications or online games. Just prepare 2 or 3 photographs that you show to your students, and you ask them to write 2 or 3 sentences describing the photographs. As simple as that. It kind of, in the classroom, we do divide the activities with the heads down and heads up. So anything that requires the heads up or any kind of collaboration, okay? Shh, I'm sorry, but I'm experiencing some sounds in here in my room, and okay. Okay. And then what follows after that is the instructions for self-study. So we still have the opportunity to send something to our learners. What you need to prepare for the lesson is student book, workbook, and again, do task this and this on page, do 3 tasks of your choice. So the same principle of allowing students to choose, but there's one extra element. Before the next online session, do something, okay? And it's again for you to decide what you will need. Another example, and I promise I'm finishing, I'm kind of moving towards the end right now. So I just need like 3 to 4 minutes more. Now we've got this reading lesson. Again, you have to ask yourselves a question. What is it that I want my students to prefer, the text or the language? If it's the text, maybe we ask them to do exercises 1 and 2. Look at the photos in the article and describe what you can see. It's enough for students to think about it before the lesson and read the article to check their ideas. You can ask students to focus on special boxes like the critical thinking and think and compare the ideas. Students can actually prepare or even take notes on what they're going to say. The exam success, you're going to do a true or false exercise. What do you think is a good procedure? Do you do it? And so on. Okay, so something that prepares students for what they're going to do in the lesson. So here, look, before the next online session, you have this is what I've chosen here. Read the text on page something, be able to say what it is about in your L1. So it's enough to read it for general understanding. And so that, look what happens then in the online lesson scenario. You greet the students, you say, you ask students, say 2 or 3 sentences or write that in the chat box using the vocabulary from the previous lesson so that we revise the material from previous lessons. We've got check the activity from the reading lesson. You ask them to do as a preparation, which is the one you can see here on the top of the slide, and the lesson scenario continues in the same way. Now, other elements that I'd like to draw your attention to, again, the rules in this synchronous teaching guide is the same. So we've got different activities for different ideas for assessment, for friendly assessment. This one is actually pretty good. Look at it. Take a photo of 2 activities that you have completed and send it to me by next Friday, and you introduce the date. Mind you that the student here, it's not only you show them that they will be evaluated in a different way than just a test or a quiz, but you allow them to show it to you what they are really good at, okay? What is it that you want me to assess you? Which part of your work do you think is the best? How do you want to be assessed? So this is extremely learner-friendly, I would say. And then before the next lesson, look what happens. Watch the flipped classroom video, do some tasks on page this and that, and then read grammar reference. And if you're using Gateway, and again, I don't know how many of you actually do, all the grammar in context lesson, or most of them are supplemented with flipped classroom grammar presentation video, right? Which is absolutely great for students to watch before the lesson. And then the rules will be the same. Make use of student surroundings, engage students in interaction, and focus on the exam. So we can ask students to read this text, refer them to page 145. Also, this might be done before the lesson, right? What I'm trying to show you is that there are plenty of minor things in this course book, and perhaps there are also in the course book that you're using, if it's not this one, that are huge potential for online classes, that you don't need to do one exercise after another from the student's book and from the course book. Or from the workbook. And again, grammar in context starts with the following: greet your students, revise structures, ask students how well they understood grammar explanations they were supposed to read, choose 3 or 2 activities, and important number 5, ask your students to write 2 sentences with the new structure, with information about lives, hobbies, and so on, which they would like to other students to know. We might change this one into it's somewhere there in one of the lessons in the guide. We might change this one into a game, write one sentence that is true and 1 sentence that is false. Students read it out, and the other students have to guess if it's actually true or not, okay? So again, this is the lesson. After the lesson, you send the students the instructions for self-study, and this continues like this in exactly the same way. So just one sentence of summary. I hope that things, like I said, you will receive both guidelines or both guides, the gateway guides to both synchronous and asynchronous teaching. If, however, you don't teach with gateway, I really hope that what I've just helped you out with is to make conscious and knowledgeable choices, make good selections, and be able to prepare lessons effectively but effortlessly. Okay, be able to pick and choose what's good for my students from any course book that you actually use. And good luck with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. It was a very interesting presentation and useful as well. Right, we gathered quite a lot of questions, which we are going to ask in the Q&A session.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you again. And
thank you. I'll see you at the Q&A session, yeah?
Yeah, see you.
See you, bye.
Bye-bye. And now we are going to have a short break, 5 minutes break. Taip, tai 5 minučių pertrauka. Niekur nepabėgti. Po 5 minučių prisijungs Fiona Macmillan ir pristatys kitą temą. Tad iki pasimatymo. Welcome back. Right, so now we are about to start the second part of our conference, and you are going to listen to another true expert in the field of education, Fiona Macmillan. She will be speaking about making your vocabulary teaching accessible to all your students. Okay, so Fiona, you may take your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Hiya. I just realized I've got the wrong name on screen, so I'll change that for a moment. I'm going to be talking about vocabulary, learning vocabulary, teaching vocabulary. A lot of it will be about learner-generated vocabulary. So not necessarily a sort of a set of items that you want to teach beforehand, more related to a topic. And as you know, learner-centered is the way to go. It's far more effective for the memory, and it's far more effective at engaging the students. I will share my slides with you. I hope you can see that all right. One moment. Zoom to wake up. There we go. Lots of bright colors for you. You should be seeing these colors quite a lot the way through this. When we're training as teachers, and in a lot of the resource books that you find about teaching vocabulary, teaching lexics, we tend to encounter these aspects mostly. You'll find activities for memorization. There's a lot of pronunciation activities, focus on pronunciation of word stress, etc. We have techniques, whatever, for testing vocabulary, for practice presentation, and all the other things that you can see on the screen there. Recycling, which is extremely important. And review could potentially come into some of these activities that I'm going to do with you today. And also, of course, personalization. And that's where I tend to head, should we say, with my vocabulary activities. Sometimes I can anticipate the kind of vocabulary that will come up. Other times I can't, but that's kind of part of the thing, so that they can expand their vocabularies. And the bigger, should we say, the more expansive their vocabularies are, and the more the students feel a sense of ownership for that vocabulary, the more likely they are to remember it, more likely they are to store it in their minds and maybe even use it sometime. Having studied all these things, or having done your training with all these aspects, then you go into the classroom, and it's day one, and these 5 walk into your classroom, all right? And you suddenly realize you're not really prepared very well for them from all those resource books and all that teaching practice and all those articles that you've read. We have David, who's colorblind. We have Earl, who's sight impaired. We have Dennis, who's hard of hearing. Gaylan, who's multilingual. Increasing number of those in the classroom, which bring in different cognitive processes and cognitive capacity as well to the classroom. And we have Iggy, who's the perpetual teenager. Could be a real teenager, could be just one of those adults. When I say sight impaired, by the way, I'm not referring to completely blind. That is a completely special skill set, separate from what I'm talking about. Sight impaired could be somebody my age, once we get to the age of wearing glasses. There is an age, you may be too young to know this yet, there is an age at which we do not like to admit our sight is going. Quite a few of those people may be in your classes if you teach adults. And you want to be aware of that fact. Also children who perhaps should be wearing glasses and don't want to in front of their friends. Fortunately, wearing glasses is more cool nowadays than it used to be, but still. There may be some teenagers as well who are not happy about wearing their glasses in front of friends. The start of sight problems, all of these things. So basically, we're going to look at some techniques, excuse me, that you can incorporate into all of your classes so that all of these kind of students are catered for without you necessarily kind of indicating that we're doing this because Dennis can't hear very well. We're doing this because David actually has got no idea what color things are. Okay, so Of course, on top of that, we have these other three who wander in, but I'm not going to give any special attention to them. There's Andy, the senior, and there's an increasing number of seniors in our classes as well. There's Gordon, everybody knows Gordon. He didn't bother to bring his pen, his book, he didn't bring anything. And Stuart, who's the dyslexic. The reason I'm not going to go into much detail on these, if any detail, is because seniors is really a lot of memorizing, a lot of repetition, it's almost like going back to the younger age. The memory, I don't think that older people are kind of losing their memory capacity. I think it's just full. So you just need to work more memory activities. Gordon is the same. If you can get the stuff to stay in his head, then when he does bring his notebook and pen, you can get it to him to write it down. He can write it down at home, but he should have no excuse in future lessons saying, oh, I didn't bring my book that day. Well, tough. We did enough work for you to have remembered the vocabulary. And as for Stuart, that's a very specialized area. There are some sort of rules of thumb would be use as many different modes of teaching as possible with your dyslexic students. Don't clutter the page. If you're doing vocabulary, don't have too many other things on the page. Do a lot of sound and a lot of recording. Allow them to record everything rather than, voice record everything rather than necessarily write everything down. But that is a much more specialist area, and really in 55 minutes, so we can't do miracles. Yeah, something is better than nothing. That is my rule in life. Now, here's an activity for you. I can't actually see you, and I was hoping for a chat box, but I haven't got one. So you're going to have to do this by yourself, and I shall imagine that you're doing it. This is a memory game, okay? Now, if you're using memory games, or if you want to do a memory game, picture, memorize, take it away, ask them to describe what they saw, that kind of thing. Color is, unfortunately, the best way to go. Or I say unfortunately for the colorblind person, but I'll show you what you can do with it in a moment. Color is the best way to go for memory because color effectively saturates your attention, and your attention is what translates into memory. It's about 80% of your attention when you look at something. Approximately 80% of your attention is taken by color. So if I were standing in a large auditorium now, facing all of you, I'm not quite sure how many of you there are, but let's imagine there's about 500 people. There'll be a lot of people wearing navy blue and grey and black and brown, and there'll be a few people wearing colours like bright orange, and there might be bright pink, and there might be bright yellow, and somebody with a nice green thing with flowers on, you know. As the speaker at the front of the room, when I come out at the end of the session, I would be able to tell Jakub, my Macmillan companion, exactly where the person in pink was sitting in that huge sea of people. And I'd be able to tell him where the person in orange was and the person in yellow. But I probably wouldn't remember if somebody who was in grey was wearing grey or blue or brown or beige, because that doesn't stick in the mind. It's the stronger colours. So for memory games, as your year progresses and you know if you have or haven't got any colourblind students in your class, use colour pictures for these memory games. Brighter colours will help a lot. They'll help fix the activity. If you fix the activity, then you fix the vocabulary items in what's called the episodic memory, because we have three kinds of memory. We have the declarative, and we have the procedural, and we have the episodic. The declarative memory is the memory that tells you what the capital of Poland is, or what the capital, or how many, can you name all the states in the United States? What's the capital of Canada? Where is Burkina Faso? These kind of things. That's declarative memory, the memory of facts. Procedural is how to do things. When you were very little and you were learning to write, you didn't pick up your pen or pencil correctly. You had to think about it. You probably held it like this. And you probably started by drawing the letters that you now write. Nowadays, you pick up a pen or pencil and you write. You don't have to go through all those stages. Cooking your favorite recipe is the same. Driving a car is the same. That's procedural, all right? Cleaning your teeth. Then the third kind of memory is the episodic, and the episodic is based on the senses. The episodic memory functions through the center of the brain, through the amygdala, the caudate nucleus, the limbic system. And it is triggered by the senses, and your attention is drawn by senses. If you want somebody's attention in class, as you know, you can either wave your hands, you can snap your fingers, etc. That's the senses, obviously. And from the brain's point of view, there are 6 senses. The 6th sense being the perception of movement. However, and I'm going off on a digression here, I'm going to almost not remember what I was going to say. The episodic memory is the one that gets ignored to an extent in the language classroom. We tend to focus more on the declarative. What is this? How do you say that? Etc. That's the declarative. You know, this is a, this is a, touch your shell. Don't know if you see that. That would be declarative. Of course, procedural as well, how they do things. You know, just the whole functioning of how to do a gap fill, etc. We also rely on the declarative and the procedural when we say, okay, we need to complete the sentence with the present perfect, that kind of thing. If we can bring in the episodic memory as well, then that gives us the third layer of memory activation, and that gives us good learning practice. Because obviously a lot of language learning, particularly vocabulary, grammar is more procedural, but vocabulary is definitely enhanced by having this kind of 3-layer approach to your teaching. So what I would do with this, and obviously this is the sense of sound, of sight, is I would ask students to memorize the picture for, in the classroom, possibly a minute. I am actually going to ask you to do this. So if you're watching this right now, you might need a little notebook and pen and see what you can remember. Test yourself. Testing yourself is always good. That's why we play those games on Facebook. Have a look at the picture. Memorize as much detail as you can about the 4 girls. Ignore the background. The 4 girls, because in a moment you're going to write sentences comparing them. Please don't write the sentences yet. All right, have a look. Have a look. Have a look. As I say, in the classroom, 2 minutes. Not for you, I'm afraid. Ping. Then I would say, after the 2 minutes, I would put my students into groups, small groups, 2s, 3s, and I would ask them to write down as many sentences as they could, either about the individual girls or comparing, depending what language I want to practice, if I want to practice any comparatives or not. However, they may not, and you may not, use any words of color. All right? You may not refer to the girl in the blue, okay? But try it. Just right now, write down 3 sentences. And if you're super fast, 33 sentences. Write about that picture. And I will show you the picture again in just a second. No color words allowed. Okay, and while I'm here, I'll just say that ELT Pics, if you Google Flickr ELT Pics, you will find that picture resource. It was created by English teachers around the world for English teachers. And it's all organized. If you go into the albums bit of the Flickr page, you'll find it's all organized according to very English teachery kind of categories like prepositions or animals, phrasal verbs. Okay, so have a look at that. That's where I got the photos from for this presentation. Sorry, talking too quick. Here you go. There's the picture again. And now we can check it without the color, and we can see where we write the biggest smile, the longest hair, the biggest earrings, the tallest girl, etc. All right, even the widest nose you could possibly do. Who's got the most bracelets, etc. And you'll start to focus on different details when you see it without color. And it's a really good way of getting to check and then say, okay, now just correct your sentences a moment. And then, the reason for doing that kind of thing is these numbers. No, it's not a maths puzzle problem. These numbers, thinking of it, I'm allowing you a moment to think about them. These numbers are related to color blindness, numbers and symbols. The three numbers across the top refer to, globally speaking, shall we say, three races. You've got white Caucasian people on the left, you've got black African races on the right, and in the middle you've got the Asian races, ethnic. 1 in 12 Caucasian boys has some kind of color blindness. 1 in 17 Asian boys, and 1 in 20 black or African, Afro-American, whatever, boys has color blindness. I suspect in your teaching context, you're at the left-hand end of that. 1 in 12 boys. So if you work in a boys' school, or have predominantly boys in your classes, you've got 1, 2, maybe even 3 colorblind boys in there. So it is very much something to bear in mind. The XX refers to the fact that although there are 3 basic types of color blindness, one of them does not exist in the XX chromosome people. So lady people, you don't have, there's one kind of color blindness that is not in a Y chromosome. The Y chromosome gives us a better capacity to perceive color, basically. And because women have 2, we've got a double chance of being able to see color, perceive color. For women, female people, lady people, females, it's 1 in 200. All right, because of the other 2 types, of the 2 types of color blindness that female people can experience. They are the more rare types. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be colorblind, that is it. Top left is normal. Don't like the fact that it says normal, but anyway, the majority vision is the top left image there. That's how the majority of us would see those tomatoes. And the other 3 images, or the other 3 types. The deuteranomaly is the most frequent type of color blindness, and that's the one that only people with a Y chromosome experience. All right, the bottom 2 is, you know, both masculine or male rather than female. Okay, now you can see the issues that somebody with protanopia might have with color pictures, tritanopia as well, in fact, all of them. So this is why it's something to bear in mind when because we do live in a very visual period in history. You know, we do use a lot of videos, we do use a lot of images, we convey a lot of information. In the primary classroom, we use a lot of flashcards and stuff. In the secondary classroom, we try to kind of tune into the teens' normal sort of mode of communication and learning. We use lots of images and stuff. So it's very, very, very worth bearing that in mind. Even in the color of fonts that you use, if you use PowerPoint, and I must admit, you know, and word clouds, I'm usually careful with word clouds, but I don't always remember with headings and stuff on presentations, which isn't great. Also, if you have a look, you get these kind of pictures. This is from a Macmillan book, and I can't remember offhand which one it is, but sorry. This is the typical exam preparation image for the children's exams, flyers and movers and so on. And of course, they often rely on color, which is really quite difficult, shall we say, for children, or for some children. So at the beginning of the year, you're unlikely to know if you've got colorblind children in the class, teenagers, this picture's not appropriate for them, but at the beginning of the year, you won't know if you've got colorblind kids in the class. So when you're preparing this kind of activity, I wouldn't just sort of pile in and say, right, listen, what color is the chair on the left? Where is the, I don't know, which is the red chair? Color-based questions. When you're preparing your activities, particularly at the beginning of the year, put your pictures, scan them, take a photo of them, whatever, put them into Word or put them into PowerPoint, double click on the image, and you can remove the color. It's a very simple thing to do. Most of you probably know that. If you double click or right click on the image, you get corrections and you get color filters at the top in the toolbar. Take out the color, prepare any questions that you're going to use with your classes like that. Now I can say, if I want to work on, can't work on color obviously, but if I want to work on the vocabulary in that picture, I don't start asking about the red chair and the blue chair. I then, it's just a way of training your brain to say the chair on the left, the chair on the right, and not say what color is the bag. Just say, where is the bag? Look at the color, look at the jumper on the bed. Do you remember what color that was? There's no way that looks yellow now, you see? So take away the color when you're preparing. And if you're like me and you do give presentations and you give PowerPoint, you use PowerPoint, try to remember, which I don't always. Or any of these things where you're going to use color. For example, reward systems. If you're with primary, you may have a reward system, particularly at the moment, if you're in the COVID classroom. I'm not quite sure of your situation, your circumstance, but in the COVID classroom, of course, we need at the moment to make children feel even safer than usual. So motivation by reward system is really highly recommendable at the moment. If you have, for example, the reward for the good listener of the day and the good speaker of the day and the good friend of the day and the good teacher helper of the day, etc. The nice quiet one of the day. If you have those little awards and you use colored stars or something, instead of using colored stars, get into wingdings or webdings online and color, rather than color code or rather than only color coding, use the webdings as well so that you always have the same webding or wingding so that your blue good listener reward card always has the little hand on it or a smiley face or something. All right, so use as many things as you can as alternatives to color coding. All right, so that's another thing for colorblind. Also, when you do the memory type games, this is from Gateway. I love Gateway. It's Macmillan. As I say, the memory does function using color. So don't just take away the color picture. Put the two. You don't need to say black and whites for any of you that might happen to be colorblind. Give the options, because actually you do notice different things when you look at the black and white, just because you have to look slightly more carefully. Using colors the kind of slightly lazier way. So offer the two, put the two on, if you're teaching in a Zoom room like this, in your materials for screen, in the classroom, give them the two pictures. And just ask the students to, look at one of these pictures. It's the same picture. Look at whichever one you're comfortable with. Look at it for, in this case, 2 minutes, it says. And then close your book, cover the picture, or I switch off the thing on the screen, all right? Take it away. And then write the sentences. Notice what people were doing. So you now have a look at that. I know I can't directly ask you questions, but have a look. Then I will take it away and I'll ask you to do something. Have a look and see what you can remember about that picture. Sorry for talking over the top. I'm going to count to 10 silently. Have a look and see what details you can remember. Okay. Now, of course, now in the classroom, I would put my students into pairs, get to write down as many sentences as they possibly could. What I'm going to ask you to just think about is that if you were to do that now, and if you were to think about which of the pictures you looked at, which did you look at? Which did you use more? Did you use the black and white one? Or did you use the colour one? Think about it. You see, I find that when I do this, I tend to look at the black and white one. But I also know, because I'm fascinated by the brain and how the eyes work and all these kind of things, the senses, that if we speak a language that reads left, right, our eyes also read pictures left, right. And because on that screen I had the colour one slightly to the left and the black and white one slightly to the right, the tendency is to let the eyes roam, wander to the right. And that would be the black and white one for me. But also I know from experience that I will get more detail from the black and white. So I tend to look at the black and white and then just reinforce my memory by a quick look at the colour. I don't know if that's the same for you. But again, it tells me that if I use both black and white and colour, if my students, or even if any of my students do the same as me, I am really reinforcing the memory because they are looking at the picture twice. They're seeing it in two formats. That's repetition, essentially. It's two different modes. It's the colour reinforcing the memorising. Looking at the black and white is a little bit more cognitive processing because I've got to look more carefully and think more carefully, not focusing so much on the colours. So doing the double picture thing is also a very good idea. Excuse my glasses, they're falling off. There we go. A little bit more detail. You may also, in my experience, just an odd little comment with this picture. Take note, Mr. Macmillan, Jakub. The people who look at the picture in colour never notice that the guy on a bike has a baguette. So carrying a baguette is better to spot in black and white, okay? Here we go. There's another picture. I'm going to check my time. Now, I've gone on about colour and memory and episodic memory and learning and so on and so forth. We also use pictures quite a bit for imagination, for writing stories. And we might say, okay, we're going to write a story. Have a look at the picture and let's brainstorm. Let's get some vocabulary. And here people will go probably, ooh, water, maybe a reflection, boats. Oh, boys, cap, t-shirt. Now, what's happening is the colour is drawing the attention. And as I've used this in class, this is also from ELT Pics. The photographer is called Ian James. I love this picture, but it is not good for an imagination activity, an imagination-based activity like guessing the story. It might possibly work for brainstorm and vocabulary, but you will tend to get the boats and the boy on the left's clothes, maybe the blue shoes, because of the thing about colour drawing the attention. But if I actually then want to go on and use this picture to build a story, so start with a vocabulary and then go into telling a story, it's not a good picture. Because the story, the action, is the bit that doesn't have much colour. It's in shades of sepia. And it is not the bit that your eye is drawn to. Your eye, I'm sure right now, if you just sit and sort of look at it in a lazy way, your eye goes to the colour area, possibly to the water, because you've got the colour above and below. It might go to the kid with the red clothes. The little area of sepia, it sort of passes, not unseen exactly, but unnoticed to an extent. The simple thing to do, and this is a photo that I took of one of my students on a day trip, is what I mentioned before. Use a photo, find a photo, take a photo, whatever, stick it into Word or into PowerPoint, double click, take out the color, hit the black and white option, check that you can still see more or less what's going on here, and use that. Then, there's not much in this. It's as I remove color, some of the visual clues are removed, which is good for triggering the imagination. It's better to give less information and allow the mind to fill the gaps than to give too much information or to saturate the attention. So here, of course, this activity is wonderful for colorblind as well. There's no sort of color distractions. I'm using black and white. Then I say to my students, I want you to imagine, what can she see? What can she hear? What can she smell? What can she hear? How does she feel? How does the grass feel under her hands? All right. We go through that step by step. And if I were able to communicate with you, we would do it with you. I'm sorry. But just think about it. Just think for yourself. If you've got a pen and paper, just note it down. Have a look at it and imagine you're with her. And take a deep breath. And what can you smell? Just note it down. You can email me later because my email's at the end of this. Okay. What can she smell? And what can she hear? And if she looks around, apart from seeing me, the photographer, what can she see? Smell, hear, see. You could also have, how does the air taste? I know where she is, so I know what it tastes like because I was there too. All right, note that down. And I do know what it tastes like. It's kind of salty. It's that sea air. Wish I was there. Lovely sunny day that was. It would be interesting if you email me at the end with what you heard and smelt there. That's a really good way of generating vocabulary as well. I'm saying it favors or helps colorblind people. It kind of plays to their strengths because this is more into the colorblind world. You can then ask your students if they really don't know the English for the words, like, I don't know, kelp, for example, you can go into mother tongue and then have a vocabulary moment. Now, I thoroughly encourage visualization, but I also thoroughly encourage, which is this really, imagination, visualizing and imagining smells and so on. But you cannot limit it by saying only write down the words you know in English. So for a lot of these activities, and the ones coming now, quick check of time, you will probably need to allow them to write down in English or their own language. All right. And when they write down in their own language, you then have a vocabulary moment for 5-10 minutes after that, before a speaking stage, where the teacher help with vocabulary, or they have dictionaries, or if you're in the online situation, they can find their apps. They can even go into Wikipedia, look up kelp, and then translate it into the mother tongue and look it up in the English bit, obviously. All right. Then they've got so much more vocabulary, and it's the vocabulary that came from their head, their senses, and it will be associated with a smell and with a sound and with a taste, etc. And that association of, it's like if I say to you marshmallow, if you know what a marshmallow is, there's something in your taste center in your brain automatically goes ping, and the taste center activates. And so that the word marshmallow, actually, if you've tasted one, it triggers that part of the brain. And so as you teach the English word for, or in my case, in your language, the word for marshmallow, the part of the brain being triggered really reinforces the memory because it's triggering the episodic. All right. So try all the sensory stuff. And use low color. So black and white or low color. Low color like that. There's really not a variety of color in there. There's the red bus, but you know, it's not a huge range of bright, funky colors. It's not Rio, you know, it's not Carnival. So you're not limited to black and white, but use low color. You can also use music to trigger visualization. Ask students to imagine a city scene. Ask them to imagine, or tell them to tell, or ask them to tell you what they noticed about a city. And I do this one a lot. And they'll say traffic, people, shops, the light, the weather, if there's any trees, the signs, litter, etc., buildings, architecture, people, what people are wearing, people's expressions. So you put all that on the board, and then you say, okay, I'm going to play you a little piece of music, and I want you to visualize a city scene and think about those aspects. All right. And you actually don't just play one little piece of music, you play two, very short, because often it's the contrast that triggers the visualizing. Sometimes the first piece of music doesn't quite, and when you switch music, it does. And for the city, I often use Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, which is a real kind of dark, spooky. And the reason I use that one now, and usually just about always use that one, is because I know what vocabulary is going to come out of it. And I'm thinking, I want this kind of vocabulary. These are the items I'm hoping will come up. I also know there's going to be a lot of other items, and I might be surprised. But I do know I'm going to get dark and rainy and quiet and maybe scary. And I often get snowy, you know, it's snowing. So I can kind of predict. I usually get a dead body on the ground as well with that piece of music, but still. And then the second piece of music I would recommend if you do the city one, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, a song called 100 Days, 100 Nights. And you just play probably 30 seconds maximum of each song. The Evanescence thing, I just play the introduction. All right, I don't go into the sort of the heavier, mean bit, just the kind of the woo-woo intro, okay? You can do that with all kinds of things. So now coming up to Christmas, you know, winter, use there's a song from The Snowman. There's a cartoon film, an animated film called The Snowman, and I think the singer's Alan Jones, but I wouldn't swear to it. But the theme music to that is like dee 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 dee, and it's a choir boy singing. You contrast that with Macy Gray's version of Winter Wonderland, and hey presto, you've got a wonderful source of vocabulary, possibly slightly higher level, but it doesn't have to be. Teenagers and adults even love this. Adults often believe that they have no imagination, and so that will limit what they write. Use this. I've actually cried with joy correcting some compositions using the music and the winter thing and the snowman music and Macy Gray's Winter Wonderland, because the compositions were just so good, because they had generated so much vocabulary. The activity, we'd done the activity in class and we looked at the vocabulary. I worked in Spain. This was, you know, we looked at the Spanish and we translated it into English. Then we checked the right meaning and we put it into sentences and we built phrases, did collocations, winter weather, hard frost, all this kind of stuff. Build a snowman, so on and so forth. And then they wrote the descriptive essays, and they were so glorious. I actually produced it as a booklet. We illustrated it, and they all got that as a like a Christmas present from the course. So try something like that, and they'll learn that vocabulary. They'll remember the whole experience, not just the vocabulary. They'll associate it with the activity and the music, and they'll love you as well, which is always handy. If you don't have music or you don't want to use music, you can do things with your own voice. If you have, I call it the sexy voice, but you should try to use a relaxing voice. And again, ask the students to take notes, and you're going to ask them a series of questions. You're going to take them through an experience. They're going to have their eyes closed and then open their eyes and take notes of what they saw, heard, felt, etc. And you're going to allow them to write in their own language. Again, this could be teens, it could be adults. I haven't tried it with primary, but I suspect with older primary it would work as well if you simplified the questions. They write it in their own language or in English if they can. And then you have the vocabulary moment, and then you have a speaking where they tell each other what they saw, exchange ideas. That would be the same with the music one as well. Stage I forgot. You've got to have the speaking stage as well, where they compare and they can steal each other's ideas if they really have to, or expand on their own. And then writing, and with primary it would need to be writing sentences, but still. So I would do something like, it was a cold, dark night. I needed to ask you to close your eyes for this. Sorry. Say, it was a cold, dark night. You were standing alone in the middle of what? You visualize, you open your eyes and you write down what you were standing in the middle of. And then the next question would be something like, oh, a sound to your left. You can just hear it. What is it? Again, they open their eyes, write it down. Far in the distance, just you can just see it ahead of you. You just see it. Oh, moving, quick. What was it? Write it down. You know there's something behind you. You feel its presence. But you don't turn around. What is it? What do you think it is? What is it? Oh, write it down, etc. What can you smell? What can you hear to the right? A sudden loud noise from the right. What is it? Write it down. Okay, and you get these notes, and then you work from the notes into the English. That gives you a huge amount of vocabulary. You can share the vocabulary in small groups. You don't need to do a whole class. Whole groups, I don't know what your COVID classroom is like, but it does work. You just turn the chairs, and you just need to be a little bit tolerant of noise. Stand in the middle, don't stand at the front. Exchange their ideas, and so on and so forth. All right, and then they can use it for compositions. Now, all that was about colorblind, and I've only got about, let me see, I've got 20 minutes, we're okay. For the sight impaired, we're into green here. Sorry, color coding. And the thing about don't use color for colorblind people, I do apologize. The green, this is sight impaired. Now, for people who've got sight issues, and particularly ones who don't want to tell you, so just bear in mind doing these, using the other senses, as well as always pictures and always videos. So as I've just said, music and voice, etc. It will really help people with any kind of sight issues. I've already mentioned the senses triggering the memory formation. If you're interested in the brain, as I am, I'm fascinated by it. The amygdala and the hippocampus are the main things to look up here. They're both triggered by the senses. The hippocampus doesn't particularly help with the content of the memory, but it will tell you, it'll help recall. The hippocampus is the thing that, you know that experience when you've been studying for an exam and you're in the exam and you go, I can remember where it is on the page, but I don't remember what it says. You know that thing? Well, that's the hippocampus, because the hippocampus creates maps, but it needs backup from the amygdala, and there's two amygdala, the amygdala and the caudate nucleus, which is another part. All right, so, you know, use mapping, use picture, use sound, use smell, use them all, right? Smell, but how can you use smell in a classroom? Don't ask students to smell each other. No, obviously not, and particularly in the COVID classroom. Can't get close enough. And if they can smell each other from a distance, But as well as having a mind's eye or an inner eye, you have an inner nose, you have a mind's nose. So you, the teacher, can just suggest smells and the students' minds will smell them. An activity that I use as well for vocabulary, and then we go from the vocabulary, well, it's not so much from to writing a description, but I use the description writing to reinforce or recycle the vocabulary. I start with, you can start with one word. I like to start with 3 words, but each one is a smell. All right, and I ask the students to close their eyes, listen to the word, and imagine the smell of the thing. Right? And then they have to note down at least 3 words, between 3 and 5 words. One word, or at least one word, must be an adjective. I'm going to ask you to do this, so note what I'm saying. One word must be an adjective. One word must be a place, but a common noun, not a proper noun. So not a name, not Hampton Court, but a castle, for example. And one word must be a person, but again, not their name. So not Max, but son. My younger son's called Max, or not William and Max. William will complain if he ever finds out I didn't name him. So they have to write down an adjective, a place, and a person. And if they want another 2 words, and you're going to have to do it now. So if you've got that notebook and paper, close your eyes and for a moment, think coffee. The smell of coffee. Note down your words. Second one. Grass, as in garden. Cut grass. Grass. And write down your words. Adjective, place, person. Grass. I'm actually getting sounds as well right now, not just smells. And the third one that I use, and I use a lot, is swimming pool. 3 to 5 words. Swimming pool. All right. So they've written down their words. And then you get them to shout out, okay, what adjectives have we got? What places have we got? What people have we got? You can write it on the board. You can have a big list of adjectives, list of places, list of people. You can have separate, so you've only got coffee, you've only got grass, you've only got pool. You can mix it all up. It doesn't matter. You're going to get a lot of vocabulary on your board. You're going to help the students who don't know some of the words. They're going to learn lots of new words. And then you're going to say, okay, use all this stuff. I want you to choose 4 adjectives, 1 place, 2 places, 3 people. Write a description, write a story, write a sketch, perform a sketch, etc. All right. So you could do lots with that. And again, as I say, if they need to do it in their first language, they can, but you need that the dictionary or teacher help stage as well. Okay. That one, though, I often find they'll write words that they already know. Though for me, swimming pool, prickly, because that smell of chlorine, prickly, then I can add in some words if I want them to. You can also kind of predict what people are going to say. Not completely. I did this with some teachers, and of course, different cultures, coffee, different associations. So that was really interesting as well. I learned some cultural stuff as well from that. Touch, you can use, I've got here, better check my time as well. Yep, still okay. Simple things for touch. Anything where students have to close their eyes, you're okay with the people who are sight impaired. You don't need a massive amount of stuff. You can do, I've got this here actually from teacher training last week by chance. The touchy-feely bag, again, not in the COVID classroom. Touch is a bit difficult now. You'd have to ask the students to bring things. In the normal classroom, you know, I've got all these animals put in the bag and they have to work out which animal it is with their eyes closed. You know, is it a fox? Is it a mouse? All right, so I use the little realia. So I've got my dog, my cat, my mouse, my bird, my lion. And then we have the which one's the odd one out. Why? Which one would you prefer to own as a pet? Why? I'd like a lion. Why? Because it's unusual, etc. All practicing. And that all just comes from the touchy-feely bag. And in that sense, I am controlling the input. That works with the sight-impaired children. 2 stones is a good one. I do this a lot. If you've ever been on one of my teacher training courses, you'll have probably done this with me. Again, this involves putting it in hands, but you can actually ask children very easily to bring 2 stones to the next class. And if you put the stones, I doubt you've got 2 right by you right now, but if you do, try this. And if not, try it later. Pick up 2 stones, hold one in each hand, close your eyes, and then start thinking of the adjectives that you need to describe them. You will be amazed at the amount of vocabulary you can get from 2 stones. They're obviously different. I chose these 2 specifically. These are ones that I actually do use. I have another one somewhere around. It's under my light, I think. But this, it's bigger, it's smooth, it's flat, it's thin, it's round, it's fatter, it's, whoa, sorry, it's got holes in it, etc. It's rough. You can, even if they've got their eyes closed or behind their back, ask them to guess what color they are. And weirdly, the feel will send a message about what color. From our world experience, our knowledge of the world will tend to tell us, this kind of stone tends to be black or gray or whatever. So try that. You'll get lots of adjectives out of it. 2 very cheap materials. Shells, that's why I happen to have a shell, stones, shells, anything that's dead easy to find wherever you are. Stones for most of us is going to be the easiest. So that's touch. Next thing, for the sight impaired, you really need to reinforce the memory. So this will also help the kid that never brings the book and so on and so forth. You can use poems and chants for vocabulary. You can use it for structures as well. First thing I ever teach in a kids class is, may I go to the toilet, please? May I go to the toilet, please? The loo rap, all right? So, that'll stick vocabulary in the memory. That's how we learn as children. That's how we learn a lot of words when we're little, by, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I remember that from being a kid. And 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Probably took me years to separate buckle, my, and shoe, but you still, you learn the sound of it. Songs about, tongue twisters, get the students to write the tongue twisters and they'll learn them even better. So they've done the vocabulary in the classroom, they've done the smell one, for example. You get them to write a poem or a chant or a rap or a tongue twister with some of the vocabulary they just learned. Say it again and then again and again and again, and they will remember the vocabulary. Play word association games in the classroom. I'd been hoping to play that with you, but we can't. All right. Word association games, where you just put them in pairs as a warmer at the beginning of the class. And person 1 just goes, garden. Next one, rose, red, shoes, laces, licorice, sweet, savory, etc. And they have to keep going for as long as they can, trying to make as long a string as they can. And then when you go, okay, stop, you get them to sit down and write down all the words that they came up with. All right. And that will reinforce and recycle vocabulary they've done before. Okay. Invisible drills is when you write the things, for example, days of the week on the board, and you pat them and you go, Monday, Monday, you have to pat and they repeat, say and repeat. So, Monday, 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 Tuesday, 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 Friday, Friday, back to Monday. And you gradually rub off the words and point. Works with numbers, works with months, works with any of those things. Works with anything, actually. Could be random items, but you have to repeat, 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 pointing, 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 and then gradually rub off the themes, okay? Rub off the items. And that is a really good way, because that triggers the hippocampus, forming a map. I wish I could explain that more easily here, but anyway. Let them record everything on their telephones. if you're doing Zoom on, you know, let them record the Zoom so they can listen to things. They don't have to read. You know, with you can, you might have taken notes, but if you're hard of hearing, you can't be bothered to put your, hard of hearing, sorry, sight impaired, if you need glasses basically, and you just want to listen back rather than read notes, then you can watch the recording, can't you, or listen to the recording. For the hard of hearing, I'm really not going to have time to finish, but you can email me. I'll whiz to the final slides in a moment, and you can ask me for the slides or ask me for information about the others. But the hard of hearing are the worst hit by the COVID thing, because it tends to be lip reading. And I don't know about you, but we have to wear masks in the classroom. As a teacher, I have a transparent mask. I got an email this week saying that from January, I get a transparent mask, which is useful. But that still means it's only my mouth they can see. But be very careful of things like gesturing in front of your face, hair going in your face, anything like that. Or talking to the board when you're presenting, you know, putting the flashcard and going, what's this? No, look forward, always look forward so they can read your lips. Anybody with any kind of hearing impediment, it's also good for teaching pronunciation. They should be able to see you going, bird, bird, not beard, beard, it's bird, bird, you know. All right, so be very careful. And you can raise the classmates' awareness by playing those read my lips games where they're in pairs. And again, in COVID, if they can take their masks off, you can do this. If they can't, they're not really, you know, they can stand at a distance, but the read my lips is when you're going. All right, and so they start saying the word and then miming or the facial gesture to guess what the word was. I hope you know that that wasn't happy. But I could go. Yeah. Etc. Right, and they guess. So that's an easy one, and it trains the classmates as well as practicing the pronunciation, and the physicality of the mouth movements will help them remember the word. You know how to convey the word sad. So the whole thing, okay. And also for the hard of hearing, they need multiple channels of presentation, flashcards, word cards, small letters, big letters, realia. The hard of hearing need all those to reinforce, because they're not necessarily hearing you. They need to see, but they also need to see the concept, and they need to see the spelling. All right. I'll skip that one. This was for multilingual. I've only got a couple of minutes, but for multilingual learners, use the 2 languages, but or the 3 languages, but get them to do a lot of comparative stuff. These are based on the senses. Again, it's metaphorical language. If you say, you know, I enjoy to speak, really moving. If you translate the word moving into your language, can you actually use your language word for moving? Like, I am moving the stone from left to right. Can you use the same word or not? And get them to do comparative. And by using the word moving, then the movement sense in the brain, which is the 6th sense, will be triggered, and it will help reinforce. You know, it's chucking it down outside. Chucking means throwing. Can you use that in the equivalent word in your language? You know, can you translate? You must be kidding. Mate. Can you use mate? Bitterly disappointed. The word for bitter. Can you use bitterly in your language in the same context? You know, could you translate that into your language and use the exact word for bitter? In Spanish, you know, amargamente, you can't, etc. Work that kind of stuff, and you will really use what a multilingual learner can bring to the classroom, and you will help them learn the word in English. The word bitterly, you see, triggers the taste buds. Once you've made the association with bitter, then you teach bitterly, and bitterly disappointed, they can kind of taste the disappointment, and that will help them fix it in the mind. And finally, so I am nearly there, for Iggy the teenager, all of that. Take a screenshot, take a photo of it, but do remember that teens' brains, the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed yet. The limbic system is the bit that's developing. The limbic system is in the middle. It's the bit with the senses. It's the bit you need to trigger most. It's also the bit that has expression and vocabulary. Ooh, that's useful, but it doesn't have grammar. Grammar's at the front, and rational thought is at the front. It's in the prefrontal cortex, and it doesn't fully develop until around about the age of 27. So most of your teenagers, or rather most of your learners, are probably teenagers. They are, cognitively speaking, they're still in the teen zone. So all this sort of talk of grammar and grammar and grammar is going to go whoosh over a lot of people's heads. The really analytical, and as you know, it's variable who develops when, but the really analytical will only favor some people, whereas the sensory will favor all people. And that's why this session is more about senses and triggering the senses, because it's for reaching all our students. Et voilà, as I've been saying recently, because I've been teaching Tunisians. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much to Macmillan. Thank you very much to Šviesa, if that's how you pronounce it. Thank you to the always awesome Jakub and Ignas, who's the guy on screen with me. And thank you to you who are watching and listening. And I'm just going to ping this very quickly. Ignore the promo, there's my email if you want to send me your answers to some of those exercises. You can probably contact Ignas and he can pass it on to me as well. And it's been great to be here, and I'm amazed I did actually manage to do it.
Thank you, Fiona. You did great, actually. It was a very interesting presentation, all of the methods and techniques. I think this is something that not all of the teachers can come up with on the usual daily basis. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have some questions, which you may answer at our Q&A session. So yes. Thank you for now. And let's connect around. Sorry?
An hour's time or something, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll connect again in an hour, right?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me so far.
Yeah, thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
Taip, dabar mūsų laikas šiek tiek pasistūmė, kaip matote, bene 10 minučių, tai bet kokiu atveju turėkime 5 minučių pertrauką, pradant nuo dabar, ir jungiamės paskutiniam pranešimui kažkur 15 minučių po 4. Pristatinės Kristina Urbonė, tai tikrai vėlgi bus labai įdomu ir kviečiu prisijungti taip pat. Iki. Taip, sveiki sugrįžę, welcome back, right? So I would like to present the last trainer, Kristina Urbanienė, and she's going to speak about another interesting topic, right? Which is called Never a Dull Moment, or How to Teach and Learn with Pleasure. Taip, tai Kristina, prašom, labai nekantraujam ir klausom jūsų.
Unmute myself. Okay, so hello everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to be here and to share my experience of more than 20 years of teaching. So I will start sharing my screen now. So I will also share this one. Okay, so the title of my presentation, I hope you can see everything well. Ignas, is everything fine with my slides? I just want to double check.
Viskas gerai.
Okay, good, wonderful. So the title of my presentation is Never a Dull Moment. And this is what reflects me, in fact. I am the type of personality who always seeks some challenges, and I think that overcoming those challenges help me to become stronger and achieve anything I have achieved so far. So thank you again, Šviesa, Ignas, Macmillan, for inviting me. So I would like to start. For the very beginning, well, let's start by sharing some ideas and thoughts, and I hope that you will help me. Will you please go to www.menti.com, join a presentation, and will you please enter the code, which is 273318. So the code will appear on the slide as well. So I will go straight to that slide, and I hope that you will join. I will wait. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so I will be waiting for your answers, for your responses. So once again, the code is 273318. And I would like you to respond somehow. Okay. Will you please also use emojis, those faces, reflecting your mood now? Okay. We can see some words, some signs, some emojis. Some of you are tired, unfortunately. I hope I will not make you bored and tired more than you are now. So I hope I will just ignite your passion. Okay, so different words, different emotions, curious, motivated, enthusiastic, and so on and so forth. Thank you for your answers. Yes, someone would like to have a cup of coffee or some soup or something else. So wonderful, wonderful. So now let's move on. And we have one more question. And the question is, what makes us happy? Could you please write down something that makes you happy? Wonderful. Thank you for your answers. Thank you so much. Good, great. Purpose. Food. Nice, so nice. Thank you for your responses. That's a good way to start. Support and encouragement. All right, so thank you so much. Let's continue. So how to be happy and how to succeed at work. So there might be some factors, right? For example, good salary, why not? Pleasant colleagues, opportunity to grow professionally, do what you love to do, good relationship with students, or positive classroom atmosphere, students' achievement, reward, self-expression, and many more factors could be added to this list, I suppose. So what do successful teachers do? Professor John Hattie thinks that a successful teacher establishes a student's expectations of their abilities, but then dispels those expectations by telling them they can do better. And what a student achieved yesterday should never be okay tomorrow. John Hattie, who is a researcher in education, in his interview in 2018, What Does It Mean to Be a Successful Teacher, said, what is pervasive, teachers too often deny their expertise, and they are nice people. They give credit to the kids work, the parents help, the resources are right, and we have to stop and stand up for our profession and say, hey, we have expertise, we change, we cause learning, and quite frankly, we are pretty good at it. So these are the words said by John Hattie. Well, what works best in education? So in a 2008 meta-study, Professor Hattie popularized the concept of visible learning. So that is when teachers see learning through the eyes of students and help them become their own teachers. So he compared effect size of many aspects that influence learning outcomes in schools, and he points out that in education, most things work. So the question is just which strategies and innovations or innovation work best, and where to concentrate efforts in order to improve student achievement. So John Hattie studied some areas that contribute to learning. So here are the areas: the student, the home, the school, the curricula, the teacher, teaching and learning approaches, the classroom, and he not only provided a list of those relative effects, but he also tells a story underlying the data. So he found that the key to making a difference is making teaching and learning visible. And he developed a way of ranking those various influences in various meta-analysis according to the effect size. So you can see the list here. And those influences that are related to learning outcomes, from the very positive, you can see the very positive ones, to some negative even ones, right? The red bars showing this. And he found, Professor Hattie found that the average size of all interventions was 0.4, so-called hinge point. So now I would like to move on, and I have picked some factors influencing students' achievement, just for you to consider a little bit. So what impact do these factors have on students' achievement? So I would like you to think for some seconds maybe and circle L if it is low impact, medium, so circle M, and H if it is high impact. And here are 13 factors. So I tried to pick different ones, the ones that the sizes and impact is different. So differentiating learning styles, e-learning, then class size, homework, social skills programs, feedback, formative evaluation, and others. So will you please think for some seconds, and later on I will share with you the answers. All right, so I will move on. And here are the effect sizes. So you can see that students' self-reporting grades take 1.44, which is high impact. Then formative evaluation and teacher credibility, which is 0.9, also high. Teacher clarity, 0.75, also high impact. Peer teaching, 0.74. And we move on. Teacher and student relationship, which is so important, especially for me, that is of great importance, 0.72, which is high impact as well. Then social skills programs and after school programs, somewhere in the middle, 0.4, that is a hinge point, and that is medium impact. Now look at those numbers. Is this what you expected? So homework, class size, e-learning, and differentiating learning styles, they impact students' achievements, but not at that high rate or level. So that's only low one. So now I would like to share the barometers of influence, and you can see that the blue zone of desired effects, so it is something that has the effect size of more than 0.4. And then we have orange and yellow areas with typical effects of teachers and students that can be accomplished in a year of teaching, or what students could achieve without schooling, and the red zone, decreased achievement, or maybe some destructive ones. So the next thing I would like to talk about is mindsets in the classroom. So as well as relationship, homework, different programs, I suppose that attitude that our students have and that we have also plays a very important role in achieving something that we want to achieve. So in order to make learning teaching process more successful, positive, so we should have in mind that there are two different types of mindsets, and we have students with fixed mindset, we should admit, and they think that failure is the limit of their abilities, and they are either good at it or not, and the abilities are not changing, and when I am frustrated, I give up. Well, on the contrary, people with growth mindset, students as well as teachers, they think that failure is an opportunity to grow, and they think that challenges help them grow. So I suppose that students should be focused on achievement, but not on grades only. So this is what I have noticed. And giving positive feedback also plays an important role in that process. So students should develop some resilience to mistakes and failures. So what are the differences? Students with a fixed mindset can say, I am not good at this, or this is too hard, or I'm afraid I will make a mistake. I give up. This is too easy. This is good enough. And I won't try because I might fail. I am not as good as my friend. While students with a growth mindset, or we should teach our students to change their ideas and opinions about themselves, I suppose. So they should say, I am not good at this yet, but I will learn. This will require effort and finding the right strategy. When I make a mistake, I will learn from it. I will succeed if I put effort and find some better strategy. How can I make this more challenging instead of saying this is too easy? This is good enough? Is it my best work? Can I improve? If I fail, I can try again until I succeed. And instead of comparing yourself with your friend, you can say, I am in charge of how smart I am, because I can grow my brain by learning hard things. So how can teachers help students grow their brain and change their attitude? We should praise our students for effort, for strategies, for progress, for hard work, for persistence, for rising to a challenge, for learning from mistakes, but not for talent, not for being smart, not for born gifted, not for fixed abilities, not for not making mistakes. And we should practice and convince our students of the power of saying yet. So we should say, you can't do it yet. You don't know it yet. But if you learn and practice, you will. So we can all help our students just to change their mindset. And instead of beating themselves up over a low mark, they will begin to understand that it is part of a process of gaining better knowledge and higher marks in the future. So this way, students stop hiding from challenges. Instead, they seek challenges. And that is a sure indication of increased motivation to improve their English level. So, what materials to use or what textbooks to use? Most probably the ones that develop critical thinking skills, life skills, or resilience to mistakes and failure. And I could add many more things here. So, my idea is Gateway materials are full of tasks for developing critical thinking skills when students are asked to express their opinion, to support their opinion with arguments. They are taught to, for example, give a constructive feedback or react to a conflict, or how to give a speech, how to give a pitch if you want to run your own business. And those tasks that appear in those textbooks, they offer a chance just to help our students understand that sometimes there is no right or wrong answer. Sometimes their own opinion and answer is the right one if they can give some arguments to support their opinion. So this is what I do. And I have been using Gateway for 4 years as my main textbook, I would say. Now I am using it as some kind of extra practice, well, because I changed schools and there's a kind of policy, but still, that is a chest of treasures, I would say, full of different activities and tasks. So now, let me share some tips and tricks on how to fill lessons with pleasure, because what you learn with pleasure, you will never forget. So, first things first, I am obsessed with quotes, and my students know that each new week we start with a new quote. So here I have 4 quotes, but usually I used to have 2 of them in the quote corner, which is called Quotes of the Week. And each new week with a different class, I start my activities by just discussing the quotes, picking one of the quotes, giving your opinion, saying whether you agree or not, maybe giving some real life examples or sharing your experience on that specific one. So when we had the chance to teach at school, so usually my students had to pick 1 quote out of 2. Then I used to give 1 minute just to think about it. And then I would ask them to stand up and start mingling in the classroom, finding someone who is not sitting next to you and talk about the quote you have chosen and about the quote your partner has chosen. And then, let's say in 2 or 3 minutes, I asked some of them to share their opinions if it was appropriate. And usually what happened or what used to happen was that I asked them to express their partner's opinion and give their partner's examples. So this fostered some kind of mutual support and understanding. So it showed that they could trust each other while sharing those real life examples with their partners. So here are 4 quotes, and you can see also 2 quotes put together, and they were used 2 weeks ago, I suppose, when we had a Zoom lesson or a Teams lesson. So that is an example of online teaching and using those quotes online. So there is no difference. You can use them in any way you like. Just be creative. And most probably you would like to ask if my students like this activity. Well, at first they get a little bit frustrated, or they feel a little bit anxious about how to start, what to say, I don't know the word, but then they get used to it. And look what I have here. I would like to share just a message from one of my students from last year. I wrote, "Hope you are doing great." And she said, "Could be better. I never thought I would miss Monday quotes that much." And you see that it was a group, a message in a group. So some people even liked it, right? So this shows that they also miss those Monday quotes. So it becomes a habit, just sharing something good and nice and positive. Now, the next tip would be creative. For example, here I have a poster on my classroom door. Every class is different. Every learner is unique. Nothing special, you would say, but this way I show my attitude towards my students. I show them that I believe in their uniqueness, I believe in their strengths, and I believe that they can move on and improve. One more thing that I tried, it was an idea taken from the Big Life Journal. So that is something I did last year with my students. Again, I put this poster on the classroom door from the outside, so they could come anytime and leave their signature somewhere. And I invited them to participate in an act of kindness. So you can see that it is full of good things, good deeds, right? You can do to other people. You can make someone laugh, or you can invite a new friend to play, or you can fill a box of toys or clothes to donate and give someone a compliment. So this is something that motivates them, which is not a classroom activity, but still they are involved and well, encouraged to do something good and kind. Now get students involved and aware. What do I mean here? I use the LinkedIn account, and whenever I get some kind of daily rundown, all the things that are happening in the world on that day. For example, here is from Friday, November the 13th. So it is full of nice articles and really worth reading articles. So I share some of the articles, the ones I find useful and interesting. For example, this one, where is the most talented workforce? It's interesting, isn't it? So something about companies seeking to attract and retain talent should look to Europe. And of course, students get curious. They want to find out which countries can boast such talented workforce. And this is what I do. I have some messenger groups, and here I shared this, where is the most talented workforce? And you can see that they reacted, so which means that they enjoyed reading and finding out. And here, sometimes sending those articles or sharing the links might even provoke some kind of discussion. Which is not my aim, in fact, but I am quite happy to see this happening. For example, airports use dogs to sniff out virus. And they started discussing, but dogs can get COVID as well. Or is it possible though? So my suggestion was read the article. So that is a kind of communication, and I love it, really, I love it. It's not in the classroom, so something that happens later on. Then, what else can we do? We can foster students' curiosity, make them wonder, make them ask questions about the world, about what is surrounding them. And here goes a wonderful website, which is a chest of treasure, and I will show why. So it is called Wonderopolis, and here, each new day, we have a question and a discussion or some articles that follow that question. So we can just simply go and read some kind of question, but we can also search. For example, this is my question. Why does a strawberry have seeds on the outside? Okay, so, and I will search. Look at that. So I have a great material here, and we can go deeper. So let me show you some settings and features of this Wonderopolis. You can show this to your students. You can do the listening activity. So let's look at that. I hope it will work. Okay, so here is the text. And you can listen to it.
Why does a strawberry have seeds on the outside? Have you ever wondered?
Okay, so you can change the voice settings. For example, if you don't want to listen to a female speaking, you can change.
Wondered. Why does a strawberry have seeds on the outside?
Yes. You can also decide on the voice speed depending on the level of knowledge of your students, right? So I can just make it sound
outside. Why do we call them strawberries? Are strawberries really berries?
that,
We have some very troubling news.
right? Okay, so then we can look through some reading preferences. So your students see this text on the screen. And you can, for example, focus on one line, on 3 lines, or you can even translate some words, and you can choose a language. So I will choose Lithuanian. You can choose by word, to translate by word or the whole document. So for example, berry, and I can see the translation, strawberries as well. So that is the choice. So we can also look through some grammar options. We can choose to show the words separated into syllables or not. We can also choose different colors for different parts of speech, for example, nouns, and I can change the color if I wish, or if we focus on adjectives as well, and we can even show labels here. So adjective, noun, and so on and so forth. We can also work with the text size, make it bigger or smaller. We can increase spacing or not. We can change the font, and we can change the themes, the background, whatever we want to do here. Now, I will get back, and when we analyze everything, when we read the article, so we have some wonder words taken or picked from the article. We can take the wonder word challenge, and we can test our knowledge. So something about people. Then we will go to question number 2. Strawberry is a close relative to which flower? I don't know, for example. Oops. And then I will move on to the next question. And we can also print or save this one as a PDF document and share with our students, for example. That is correct. Okay, so I am shown the quiz results and I will exit here. So one more feature which is great, that you can share the link on Teams. If you have this platform and if you use it, you can share it on Facebook, on Twitter, Gmail, Messenger. Just decide where to share with your students. So let's get back. After we have fostered students' curiosity, so maybe we should do some writing. So writing letters. Well, it's not a secret that some students hate writing letters, and here is what I did. I would like to thank my colleagues from Leidykla Gymnasium who suggested using this technique, and I tried and it worked, so thank you so much. So writing letters, but writing letters at the end of the school year and writing letters to your classroom, to your room you are working in. So students write a letter saying, dear room, and the number. And look at that, I'm writing to reflect on my time spent in here. So this year was quite challenging. You were not a part of the reason why. It's pleasant, isn't it? Contrary to that, room 219 was less intimidating, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, students are not afraid to express their opinion about teaching materials, about atmosphere, about the teacher, I would say. So let me show you some more letters or excerpts from the letters. So some students decided that they would like to thank this classroom, right? And they say that they grow and become better as a person in general, which is one of my aims. Not to focus on the language teaching only, but to grow them as personalities as well. So here, look at this one. I earned confidence. Isn't that great? And of course, a lot of joy. Perfect. What else does a teacher need? Then what about some wish to grow as a person and learning from mistakes? So the grades I got were not, well, as good as I wanted, but I know what I need to do to get good grades. Wonderful. Now, TED Talks. So I suppose that each teacher is fond of using TED Talks in their classrooms. And especially us, teachers of English. That's a wonderful way to use authentic materials, right? But yes, I have been using TED Talks for many years, and then somehow I heard about the possibility of subtitling them and getting part of all this process. So here is what I have. I just want to boast a little bit because I am so proud of my students. So this is one of the TED Talks we have subtitled. So you can see Lithuanian translation by, well, me, because I was leading the team of those translators, my second formers, my second gymnasium graders. So here is the video, and I just want...
So when I was a little girl, a book sat on the coffee table in our living room, just steps from our front door. And the living room is a first impression. Ours had white carpet and a curio of my mother's most treasured collectibles.
Okay, so now how to do it, how to start doing it. It's not that difficult. So yes, look, they are so happy. Yes, and yesterday I asked if I could use their photo and show it to the audience. They said, yes, yes, do it. We are so happy. And we have done 5 videos. So sleep is your superpower, then how to build your confidence, the one you just saw, digital human, and bacteria that eat plastic, and my identity. So how to start subtitling? It's not difficult. You just have to visit the Amara page, amara.org, and Amara makes video globally accessible with captions and translations. And this is a project of a Participatory Culture Foundation. It's a nonprofit. So it was designed with 3 audiences in mind, and especially those people who cannot hear well or cannot hear at all, or they don't understand the language. So the content itself in TED Talks is really valuable. It can enrich lives. And to those who cannot hear or who don't know the language, it is not possible to listen and to find out something new. So reaching more people and spreading the word is the initial goal of amara.org project. So we think that we did a great job and students felt the same. So they were so proud to help more people reach that content that was hidden in those TED Talks. Okay, so now let me introduce one more tool. A tool for creating interactive quizzes, gap-fill quizzes for any subtitled YouTube video. And it is called Tube Quizzed. Have you ever heard of that? It was quite new for me. I heard about it this summer. And I found out that Tube Quizzed was created by a teacher of English and her husband. So they worked together to create this platform. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of using authentic YouTube videos or authentic videos? So if I asked you to think for some seconds, most probably you would say that one of the advantages could be that those videos help prepare learners for the real world of communication and guide learners toward the language they need for their particular context, or motivate learners just to communicate because they help make communication real. And together with advantages go some disadvantages. Students say that it's difficult for them to understand those authentic videos, authentic texts, difficult to hear short forms, and sometimes those videos give culturally biased information. Now let me refer to a metaphor, botanic metaphor, because I would like to talk a little bit or to focus a little bit on the speech in those authentic videos and the speech in general. So the greenhouse, the garden, the jungle. So that is a metaphor by Richard Caldwell, and it has proved popular with teachers and students, and I will give you a short description or some kind of explanation about how this metaphor can be used in the classroom. So the greenhouse, what about it? So the greenhouse style of speech, so that is about a very clear speech where every word is pronounced separately. And in the greenhouse, words have sound shapes which are treated as if they are isolated plants, each one separate and each in its own flower pot at a safe distance from any other plant or flower. No touching, no overlapping, nothing. And we don't have such speech in real life, but we can come across it in some textbooks when we are teaching students. So the garden style of speech. So in the garden, words come into gentle contact with each other. And that is ordinary, connected speech. I suppose that it can be compared to flowers and plants which have been carefully positioned in a flower bed so that they are pleasing on the eye and well, they sway beautifully in the breeze. And what about the jungle? So that is some kind of unprepared, authentic speech with incomplete sentences, with repetition, hesitation, and that is what native language is. And the most complicated type of speech, and the most difficult for students to understand. So different problems with understanding occur not because students lack vocabulary or general content knowledge. Rather, those misunderstandings and problems occur because learners don't know how those known or familiar words sound when they are put together in connected speech. And a researcher, John Field, he did an interesting study with the function words, because these function words, they are unstressed words in a sentence. For example, auxiliary verbs or articles, prepositions, pronouns, conjunctions, particles, and others. And those function words, well, in fact, they are very important. They signal the grammar of the sentence, but because they are unstressed, they can be extremely difficult for students to hear in that connected speech. Some listening tasks that are given in our textbooks, they rather test rather than teach listening skills. So I have mentioned some study with function words. So John Field found that second language listeners identified function words significantly less accurately than content words. And even among high-level learners, those function words were likely to be missed or only approximately matched. So it is important to train students to recognize not only content words, but functors as well. And now I will explain how Tube Quizlet can help us solve those problems. So Tube Quizlet, a wonderful thing to be used in our classrooms. So why is Tube Quizlet good? Why is it beneficial? So it helps to find certain videos which contain specific examples of a particular grammar structure or some, let's say, real life pronunciation. And if we open the first tab, quiz collection, then we can scroll down and we can see different videos and quizzes given, right? So I can, for teachers' convenience, so these quizzes are grouped according to categories. You can see level, type, category, variety, right? And for example, if I choose grammar for listeners, entertainment, so I can see different videos here with quizzes given. So let me show you one example with this one. So if you go here, what is important and so good that Tube Quizlet is free of charge, you don't have to pay, and you don't have to log in. You can find those quizzes easily, instantly, quickly. So let's look at this one. So each line of the quiz, so we can see the quiz here. So each line is clickable, which means that I can click on this one.
You, I saw pictures of you with broken arms and things. What happened?
So you can see only one line, and this appeared in this video. So you can do the quiz, you can check the answers, and you can see the score here. The final score will be given. You can, how to share this with your students, so you can send a link, or you can even edit the quiz, or you can print out the quiz by pressing Control plus P, that key combination, and then look, the quiz will appear. You see the quiz with some gaps, so it is here. All right, so now I would like to get back to my slide. Oh. Okay, so when we create a quiz, we can also edit the quiz, and I will show you how. So you can, for example, trim the video, which is quite useful. If it is too long for you, so most probably you can choose the duration, 3 minutes. You can press on search, and the video is shorter and the quiz is shorter as well. So I would like to continue, but I see that it would be better for me to finish quicker, am I right? So I am not going deeper then, because I have some tips to share with you. So you can also train with your video. So you can find a video on YouTube, but the video has to be with subtitles. So if it's not with subtitles, this will not work. So maybe I could show very quickly how to find the video quickly. Okay, so I have something in my slides here. So how to find subtitled videos. So you go to www.youtube.com, and then you add in the search box, you can add a comma, CC, and then you will find your video. For example, I will go there quickly. Okay, so YouTube. Okay. So if I want to do this, so YouTube. And for example, I want to find something on, well, globalization. Globalization, don't forget to put a comma, CC, and then we will be provided with all the videos with subtitles, and then we open the video, right? And if we press on those 3 dots in the bottom right corner, we can check whether we are satisfied with the subtitles in English, and then we can copy this URL and use it here. And press on create quizzes, and here we are, different quizzes using the same video, and the number of items is given, and the focus topic is given. So, okay, so I will stop here talking about Tube Quizlet, which can be easily used in the classroom, at home, as a kind of extra activity and other things. All right, so now I would like to continue with some tips very, very quickly. Some daily habits that will make you happy and successful. I will do it quickly in some seconds, okay? So the first one is plan ahead. So why is it so important? In today's fast-paced life, not many people plan ahead, which is a key to success, and start doing it. Then number 2 is visualize your success. Don't just plan ahead, visualize your success and victory to remain focused. Then go where the action is. Don't shy away from challenges, and challenges give you the opportunity to apply yourself, learn, be part of something wonderful that might make a difference. Number 4 is trust your abilities. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, as well as different creativity levels, and truly happy and successful people understand their weak points as well as their strong ones. So show trust and confidence in yourself and your abilities daily by boldly tackling what needs to be done. Then work hard. So you know that the fruits of hard labor are the sweetest, and work harder than everyone else. Give it your best shot each day, and success will come to you eventually. Then when you finish work, especially now when we work in our home offices, so don't forget to close all the tabs in your head as well. Go home. So number 6 is get enough sleep and exercise daily. So your body needs sleep not only for relaxation, rest, but also to prevent some kind of sleep disorders like daytime sleepiness that can severely interfere with your ability to perform daily activities. And exercise is not only good for your heart and your physical fitness, but also for pumping some more oxygen to the brain and improving your brain power. Then read every day. So reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Don't forget that. Then spend quality time with loved ones. So quality time is giving someone your undivided attention. Listen, talk to each other, and you will even strengthen the bond. Number 10 is show kindness to other people. So what do I mean by that? About 99% of all the people outside are complete strangers, but believe me, they are good and decent people. So why not to say hello to someone on the elevator or on the street? So that might make their day. And the last one is forgive someone new each day. Don't hold grudges, and just think about it and forget. If you don't have anyone new each day to forgive, just forgive yourself for anything you did or did not do before you go to bed every day. So I had some activity for you, but most probably if the slides will be shared with you, so you will get it. Something about I am enough, how to be strong, and what things to repeat to yourself every day. Here are the answers. So you can see that only you are responsible. You like yourself and other people will like you. You love yourself and other people will love you. You praise yourself and other people will praise you. Don't forget that. And last thing is, are you happy? There are 2 different answers. Yes, no. If you are not happy, do you want to be happy? Some people would like to be happy, some not. If you want to be happy, you have to change something. If you are not happy, you don't want to be happy, then keep doing whatever you are doing. And if you are happy, also keep doing whatever you are doing. And just some final photos And my final wish, just be yourself, be you. And I have a wonderful short 1-minute poem here. I would like you to listen. That is my final wish. To you, trust yourself, and everything will be fine.
Be by Ms. Moem. Be brilliant, be funny, be adventurous, be exciting, be confident, be inquisitive, be warm, be inviting, be happy, be grateful, be willing, be brave, be bold, be inspiring, be remarkable, but behave. Be nice and be giving, be sensitive, be caring, be proud and be honourable, be open, be sharing, be smart and be curious, be trustworthy, be cool, be wise, be ambitious, and be nobody's fool. Be calm, be determined, be eloquent, be measured, be knowledgeable, be humble, be gracious, be pleasured, be marvellous, be accepting, be empathetic, be true, be thoughtful, be faithful, be awesome, be you.
Okay, so I suppose that is it. That is something I wanted to share with you today. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. And I will be more than happy if at least one idea will be used, or if at least you smile today. So thank you for your attention, and thank you, Ignas, and all my colleagues for being here together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you. I think we all understand why you are an expert in the field of English language teaching, right? And I'm pretty sure that right now a lot of smiling faces are looking at you, right? And would it be fine if we didn't have a break between your presentation and the discussion? Because we ran out of time, right? So would it be fine?
Yep. For me, it is okay. Yes, I am full of energy to continue. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Raugutė, jeigu būtų galima, prijunkime Fiona and Carolina. Are you here?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, welcome back. Right, so in the very beginning, I would like to address 1 or 2 questions to each of you. Well, those questions will be related to the contents of your presentations. And in the end, after you answer your questions, I would like to ask some general education related questions to all of you, just to share your opinion, if it's fine. Right? Okay, so let's start with Carolina. And we gathered some questions for you, right? I sorted it out. And the first question was, what do you think of using many different platforms in teaching, studying languages, and etc.? Or in other words, should we have a limit of online resources, right?
Okay.
What do you think?
Maybe let me start with saying that I'm old-fashioned. The beginning of my career dates back to the times when we had no emails even. So I was kind of, the way I started teaching was completely offline, okay? And I am slowly teaching, learning to use all those applications and all those online resources that are available. But first of all, I am cautious. And however, I cannot say that they are wrong or bad or they do any harm if done in moderation. So I think moderation is the answer to everything, the way I see life, basically, that everything done, moderately will be good. However, I don't use that many of those as a teacher. That's one thing. Another thing that if you know that a certain online application or a tool is really useful, then don't hesitate to use it. But at some point I noticed a kind of, I would say, concerning trend, which was, it's something that I talked about during my presentation, teachers trying to wow students. I'm so much in favor of unwowing the educational process. Okay, my job, I'm not an entertainer, and the lesson is not an educational roller coaster, is not switching from one app to another. If you really feel that behind the app you're using, there is really some educational content, and that the skills and the language system of your students actually develop, then by all means, go for it. But always ask yourselves this question: is it really educational? Is there a kind of, is there a linguistic benefit? Because this is absolutely the most important thing, linguistic benefit, learning benefit, or if it's just for entertainment. If it's for entertainment, then, well, maybe it's not worth it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. One of the teachers also says that she thinks assessment of students is the most difficult part of teaching. And she asks, how do you organize it, and what's the best way of doing it?
Do you have any idea if we're talking about online assessment or regular assessment?
Well, she didn't specify, so I'm not really sure.
Okay, let me start with assessment in general. Well, I believe that assessment has one very important goal. It makes students revise. Let's face it, the majority of students do not really sit down at home in the free time to revise the material from the lessons. If, however, things are completely different when the test appears, right? However, this can be done. It doesn't mean that I have to give them a test. Any other kind of assessment will be fine for that, okay? Anything, any form of assessment that helps students revise will be okay. My tests, also, that's another way I look at assessment. My tests are not there to prove students how little they know, but how much they have mastered. So I don't mind giving my students tests to write at home. I don't mind them writing them together in pairs or in groups because they learn from one another. I'm basically a huge fan of formative assessment. Formative assessment is just that, kind of going away from regular testing and quizzing students to introducing any other forms of assessment or evaluation that actually provides you with the information of how students progress, how they move on, how well they are doing. And mind you, this is how well and not how badly they're doing. So actually, there's another big session that I have on formative assessment online. So I should probably stop here because I'm gonna...
You're going to spoil your...
Another hour, and I could talk about it for another hour, really.
Okay, thank you. I also found a very interesting question about keeping the cameras on during the distance video lessons. And do you know the way how to encourage students to keep their cameras on during the lessons, online lessons?
That's the thing. You know, on the one hand, the way I see it, this should be done systemically. That is, it should be a clear, there should be a clear, I don't know, guideline from the school board, from the school authorities. So we either oblige students to keep, this is like a lesson, really. I'll tell you what my parents do. My parents, who are teachers, they explain it at the very beginning, saying, guys, if I don't see you, that means you're absent. So, and kind of students follow, and they do keep their cameras on. Another thing, and that's extremely important, one of the teachers that I work with has recently said that she has noticed that those students who have their cameras on do better at different tasks, simply. Why? Because if you guys see me right now, I'm focused and I'm looking at you and I'm listening to what the speakers are saying. If you allow me to turn off my camera, I was like, honestly, I was waiting for Christina to finish. I was offline. I was like, my camera was off. So I was like kind of still, looking at my phone, looking through my mails. And that's basically what everybody does when the teacher and the rest of the class sees you. So I would strongly encourage that, even making it a part of, like our online rules, really. So like, I don't see you, unfortunately, that means you're not in my lesson. Being in my lesson means, or if students don't want to be online all the time, you have to tell them, okay, now this is the moment when you can turn the cameras off. But you can also signal to everyone, guys, now, please turn the cameras on. But this is, I would say, this is to make it work. This is one of the things you have to say as a rule at the beginning of a course.
Okay, thank you for a very informative answer, right? To be honest, I have more questions, but I think I will collect all of them and send it back to you.
Okay.
Right? So that you could answer them, and then I will share it with a newsletter, which we are going to send after the conference. Well, around one or 2 weeks after the conference. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I have a few questions for Fiona as well. Okay. And one of them is, well, how do you balance engaging musical, visual, etc. activities with curriculum requirements, more serious tasks? Do you have any more ideas for creative, engaging ways for students to reflect at the end of the class?
So that was quite a long question there.
Okay, maybe let's start with the first part of the question.
Yeah, let's go.
How to balance engaging activities with more serious tasks?
I think that's what we do anyway, isn't it, when we plan our classes? Any lesson or any plan of a lesson is going to have different periods of different energy. It's like when you're planning for small children. If you're like me, if you're planning for 6-year-olds, I always have like literally three physical levels in my class. So we have some time on the floor, some time at tables, sometimes standing up. If I'm planning for primary, I'm planning heads down activities, heads up activities. I think, it's really just part of planning. It's just that when I'm doing the generating the language, then that would be the way I do it. But then we still have the quiet heads down. Let's write sentences with the words that we've just generated, or let's work out collocations, or if it's verbs or stuff, how do they work? If it's adjectives, how do they work? But to be honest, yeah, it's just part of planning, I think. That's just part of our toolbox as teachers, or toolbox, or the ingredients in our cupboard, in our teacher's cupboard for making whatever. You wouldn't have a whole lesson on yee, let's play, let's listen to music. And no, you'd have that as, that listening to music and taking notes, that's a good half hour, but there's still the other half an hour or the other 20 minutes or whatever you've got, where you're actually working with the language and putting it together and then editing it or whatever, or once they've handed in the compositions, if they do writing or sentences, whatever, then you've got the feedback stage where you look and you say, okay, are they using these adjectives correctly, or are the verbs going in the correct tense? So yeah, it's just part of planning.
Yeah, so there isn't one specific strategy of doing that.
Not really, right? No.
Yeah.
No, because for example, the memory game there, the one from Gateway, with the picture in black and white, that is essentially a grammar practice anyway. That's from memory, it's the past continuous. You could have it the present continuous, but it's what was happening. And a boy was riding a bicycle, a boy was carrying a loaf of bread, a child was eating an ice cream. So you would have that, and then you're looking at the grammar or checking the grammar. The smells to description writing, you're generating language. It's just another way of presenting language, rather than saying, okay, imagine you're at a swimming pool, What can here's a picture of a swimming pool. What can you see? Brainstorm, guys. It's doing a similar thing to things that we already do, but putting another spin on it, because if I always use flashcards, I always use pictures, I'm not benefiting some of the people in the room. So sometimes I've got to use other techniques. So, last week we did a picture. Okay, so this week we're doing music, and next week we'll imagine smells. But then, what comes after that is what you would normally do in your vocabulary lesson, or, so yeah, it's variety, spice of life and all that.
I understand. Okay, thank you, Fiona. So another part of the question was about reflecting at the end of the class, since teachers were very curious about it. So would you know any good or more ideas for creative, engaging ways of reflecting at the end of the class?
I'm not quite sure if you mean reflecting on the lesson or reviewing the language in the sense, because reflecting on the lesson, you're going to have probably fairly standard practice anyway, whether it's some kind of journaling or your students are going to write down the thing that they most remembered for the day, or the thing that they could use, if their life was in English, we say, then which of today's words would they use most frequently, which do they think would be least frequent? Sometimes that kind of processing. It's like if I give you a big list of words and I say to you, which of these words do you think is going to be the most difficult to learn? But as you're processing that, it actually flips and it becomes the one that you learn, because you've been thinking, what is it? Yeah, that one's going to be hard. I'm never going to remember that word because it's difficult to spell or whatever. And that becomes because you've done that processing, it becomes the most, or the easiest, or one of the easier ones to learn. But I think that's what I would do in any lesson, if you see what I mean. It's just, rather than having a set list of vocabulary from a course book, which would probably be literally a physical list, then reflecting would be kind of getting away from the physicality of it, the look of it, and saying which one's the hardest for you to pronounce, or which one do you think you would use the most? Or they're moving into the spoken realms, shall we say? Which one would you, if you were speaking to your best friend in English, which were these words would you use? Which would you, that kind of thing. So that's a review and a reflection at the same time.
Okay.
But I think reflection for me, you do more reflecting on the actual class than on their language. So I'd be reflecting perhaps at the end of a week or at an end of a month, saying, okay, we did a smell thing, we did a music, we did a, which do you find helped you learn the best? Which do you remember the best? Let's check, write down some words that you remember from each lesson. And actually, as a teacher, if I see that, I also then get a vision of my class and which techniques work best. Like I found my classes in Spain, particularly the music one, never failed. I kind of started using that some years ago after driving a very long distance one day, listening to music and realizing I was getting images in my head and thinking, oh, hang on a minute. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now, and literally it never fails. There's about 2% of people don't get images from music. But that's why it's important you put them in pairs to compare ideas, because then they sort of pick up on on their friends' ideas and start going, oh yeah, and then maybe this and maybe that. But yeah, I would say there's the two kinds of reflecting. There's the reflecting that would review the language, and the reflecting that would give teacher information on which techniques work best. I don't know if that actually answered the question or not. I hope so.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you did in a way, right? Because I totally agree that it depends on the students and their needs, right? The types and techniques of reflecting. So, yeah.
Yeah, and on your own classroom practice, and, do you do the can-do statement kind of stuff? Or do you do the, let's think what I found most effective, slightly more introspective kind of reflection?
Okay, thank you. That was a beautiful answer, if I may say that, right? I have some questions, actually 2 questions for Christina. And one of the teachers says that she's a huge fan of quotations. However, she was criticized for using this method as such. Could you tell our attendees your opinion? Why is it good to use and why not?
Well, I always listen to my heart. When I have some kind of consideration whether to do this or not, I always listen to my heart. If I find it useful in my classroom, if I find it useful with my students, if I see that it works in my life, so why not to do that? Why not to continue doing that? So people can criticize me, and if my students don't shout and scream and anything happens, so that is okay. So they love quotes. They get a lot of inspiration from them. So yes, it might be some kind of opinion, but it's not a fact. Mm-hmm. This is what I believe in.
Okay, thank you. And during your presentation, you also talked a lot about your students, right? And what they do during the classes. So could you tell us, how do your own students react to learning during the pandemic?
Well, now I work in a different school, in a new school, and it was a very difficult beginning, I would say, because I had only 2 weeks to meet my students in reality in the classroom, and then we had to start some kind of isolation process or something, so social distancing. I suppose that it's quite difficult for the students and for the teachers nowadays. We have to find different techniques, different approaches, how to make that educational process more attractive, which is more difficult to do while teaching online. It's quite difficult, I would say. So we, as educators, as teachers, we have to think of the best ways. Think of the best ways how to motivate them, how to inspire them, how not to put that much effort and overload them with knowledge, facts, and rules and anything. So we have to remember that we are all human beings. And yes, so it's difficult. It's difficult, it's challenging, but let's hope that we will learn a lot from this, and we will become stronger, and we will stay healthy and safe, and we will meet someday our students. I'm not sure when. So it's hard to predict, right? So, but it's a difficult period, I suppose.
We have to be patient, right?
Pardon?
We have to be patient.
Yes, we have to be patient, and we will see the results later on. Well, they might not be so satisfying, but we have to be patient, and we have to make our students think that they can do, they can learn at home. They are strong enough not to give up. This is my idea.
Okay, thank you for sharing your opinion, right? And I have the same question for all of you, right? So you can answer it one by one. Or we can start by Carolina, right? And then move to Fiona and Christina the same way we did it before, right? So what changes can you see in teachers in the future? And how will the pandemic have affected teaching after it passes?
What effect will the pandemic have on teachers, yes?
Yeah, after it passes.
I would say they will become more open-minded, definitely. I don't need to look far. I'm a good example. Last year, if somebody told me, would you do an online course? I would say, not in a million years. Now kind of things have changed, and kind of something that a few months ago I considered completely undoable for me. Now I can do with a good deal of success. So I think that it will make them more open-minded to novelties, to changes. Somehow I'm also hoping that, the whole experience will make the teaching more learner-friendly, like I said, right? You don't need that many tests. You don't need your test. Your assessment does not need to prove your learners how little they know, but how well they are progressing, okay? I don't expect you to do everything from the book. Just choose 3 activities and stick to them. Choose what you feel is important for you, okay? So all of these, and while I'll feel that the learners will actually react pretty good to this, to all these situations, I think that the major change needs to take place in the teachers' heads. And I think it is already taking place. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I generally believe that teachers will kind of, after this whole period, as teachers, not only as human beings, but as teachers, will be stronger, more resilient, perhaps. So I think that once we go through this, I'm not saying I'm optimistic right now. I'm just saying that once we get through this, I look optimistically into the future.
Okay, thank you. Now, Fiona, do you agree with Carolina's opinion? Or
I do, yeah. I think we will more fully appreciate the value of some things that we perhaps take for granted or have been taking for granted for a long time, like the absolute need to develop rapport, the human side of teaching, the kind of relationship, the need for relationship building. At the moment, our students are all, whether you're teaching remote like this or you're teaching in the COVID classroom with 10 children dotted around the room, the need to create a safe space and a kind of happy space. Even with my teacher trainees now, we have what it sounds really naff. I call it the happy hello. We always go hello in the morning. And I'm always going pom-poms for you when they get something right. And I think that kind of, we now, because this is a very, if you're looking at the screen now, this is a very unnatural way to be as a group. We usually see people in profile. We can see more body language. We can see turn-taking clues that we can't see at the moment in a remote. So we have to be more willing to listen to others, wait our turn, or more willing to say, excuse me, when we want to speak. We have to encourage more. And I think because we're doing that now, I hope that will be something that passes over into the post-normal, post-modern, post-whatever classroom afterwards. The human element, it doesn't need to be about the content. It needs to be about the people in this room or in the physical room, because everybody just feels really, pardon the word, but crap at the moment. We're all under a tremendous amount of anxiety and whatever. So I think there's that. And I also think there's the willingness. A lot of us have had to just get on with it when things go wrong and just kind of go, oh, well, never mind. What can I do? How can I do this differently? And I think, perhaps in the past it was like, oh no, I've got to stick to my plan. I've got to do this. The kids are rioting. I'm going to panic too. No, just kind of roll with the punches to an extent. Like today, for some reason, I thought I'd be able to see everybody in the chat, and I could have, you just think, oh, well, I'm not going to get stressed about this. Thinking quickly, okay, email it to me afterwards. I'll just pretend I can see what you can. So I think, the capacity to improvise, the willingness to improvise, but using our knowledge, using our experience, trusting our own instincts when sort of on the hoof, when we have to, and really tapping into the fact that we are superheroes. We're probably the most talented profession there is. We're all singers and dancers and actors and carers and I don't know, what else are we? Cleaners occasionally, and organisers and managers, and sort of tapping into all that rather than just content deliverers, because we've had to accompany and motivate and stay happy on screen and smile till our flaming faces hurt. I find a Friday afternoon training, I have to apologize because I look cross because I've just lost all the energy in my face by then. But I really think that we're just going to start appreciating ourselves more as well. That's what I think.
Okay, that was very interesting answer as well, right? Thank you, Fiona. And Christina, what's your opinion about it? Where might it lead us?
So I do agree with my colleagues here that we will become more resilient to different stressful situations. So we will be more flexible, most probably. We will be able to adapt to different situations, environments more easily. And I suppose that all teachers will become braver, just they will be strong enough to do what is best for their students. So this is my idea, because nowadays, or when the quarantine started, so many different tools appeared online, so many different offers, different platforms, use this, do that. And then suddenly, for example, me, I started feeling, wow, what's going on? Which one to use? Which one is the best one? And then you calm down and you start thinking about your own audience. So if this works in one environment, with one group, so this might not work with some other group. It's not the same. So we have to be brave enough to use the tool that is of, I would say, the best quality. But that quality does not mean that it's not good for the other audience. So we will be braver, we will appreciate human communication more, I suppose, and we will appreciate the time we can spend with colleagues, having a cup of coffee or something, a glass of wine or whatever, because now it's almost impossible. So let's stay safe and healthy, yes. And we will be more technologically advanced, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you. And just like Carolina said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? I think that's the main idea of what you have just said, all of you, right? And we still have some few minutes, actually only 2 minutes. So I think the last question would be very, very simple, right? The one that could summarize our online conference, Macmillan conference, right? What would you like to wish, or maybe would you like to wish something to our teachers in Lithuania, or teachers in general in the whole world? Does not matter.
Shall I'm supposed to start, yeah? This is actually the most...
If it's fine, we can start with another person if you want.
One wish, really? You know, I don't want to sound trivial, but the first thing that comes to your mind, let this be over as soon as possible. That's the wish for all of us.
Yeah, well-being.
And yeah, and learn to take care of yourself. I would say that this is learn how to develop the art of self-care and well-being. This is most probably what I would add to it. That's what I wish everyone.
Okay, thanks. Fiona or Christina?
I've got 2 wishes. Can I make 2 wishes?
Yeah, of course.
Wish number 1, I wish to actually see Lithuania and see Vilnius, because last time I went, I had an accident about half an hour after I arrived. I had to sit in my hotel room and then be in a conference room, and that was it. So, and this time I can't see anybody either. That's my wish number 1 in the future, is actually see you, meet you, and see your country. And wish number 2 is backing up what Carolina said. Yeah, I wish you well-being, knowing when to disconnect all the screens and all the devices and pick up a book, which is what I did for half an hour of the hour between my session and this. I've sat reading a book. I had this listening to it, but reading a book. So knowing how to disconnect, look after yourself, get some sleep, and just, I said before, roll with the punches a bit. We don't know how long it's going to last. So just, I wish you genuinely a happy new year.
Okay.
That's true. We are not even sure how the celebrations are going to look like.
No,
right?
but I think this year more than ever, the word happy is going to have a meaning. I think usually it's just something we say, like Merry Christmas, or we just go, yeah, Happy New Year, whatever that may be. But for once, I think we all genuinely mean happy, and also happier than the one before.
That's absolutely right. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you very much. And Christina, what about you?
Okay, so I would like just to add on top of what was said. So, of course, stay healthy, stay safe. Don't forget to go home, really go home from your office. Close all the tabs. And yes, turn off your devices and spend the time with the loved ones, spend the time with yourself, do some yoga, think about what is inside of you, think about how strong you are, how positive you are, and everything will be fine. Just follow your dreams and they know the way. This is my wish.
Thank you a lot. Right, so I guess in other words, we have to know how to teach, we have to know all of the techniques, right? But it's very important to enjoy every single small moment in our life, right? Which is extremely important in the times like these, right? The times of the pandemic. So thank you all, Carolina, Fiona, and Christina, for wonderful content, right? Wonderful presentations, for taking your time out and being here with us today. I'm pretty sure that all of the teachers here are pleased as well, right? I hope that this isn't the last time you are here with us, right? Maybe we can think of something else in the future, right, too. And I just want to wish, to rest, right, after the conference, right, and hope to see you soon. Maybe Fiona can visit, not only Fiona can visit Vilnius, but Carolina as well, right? Someday in the future, right, when we can do that. So thank you again and goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a good luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ignas.
Thank you. No problems. Thank you. Ir dar truputėlį, kol dar visi nėra, jeigu atsijungia nuo konferencijos, noriu pasakyti, kad klausimus surinksiu. Juos galite taip pat siųsti adresu elektroniniu, tai ne tik tais adresais, kuriuos nurodė lektorės, tačiau mes turime ir savo mokymų elektroninį paštą, kuris yra mokymai@šviesa.lt, šviesa.lt. mokymai@šviesa.lt. Tai šiuo paštu taip pat galite rašyti visus rūpimus klausimus ir juos pasistengsime atsakyti ir kartu su naujienlaiškiu, kuris bus siunčiamas 1-2 savaitės po konferencijos, tiesiog tuos apibendrintus atsakymus gausite. O šiaip tikrai noriu padėkoti visiems už laiką, lektoriams jau padėkojau, bet dėkoju ir dar kartą. Taip, jeigu girdi mane, ir aišku taip pat už jūsų dėmesį bei linkiu gražios dienos viso.